Good morning, Africa, and welcome to Breakfast Extra, where today we trade the gloom of Nigeria's challenges for the brilliance of one of our very own. Now let's take a moment to bask in the glow of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, a woman who has not only shattered glass ceilings, but stomped on the shards with aplomb. Now reappointed as the Director General of the World Trade Organization for a historic second term, unopposed, mind you, she reminds us all of what true leadership looks like. Now imagine if we could just channel just a fraction of her competence back here in Nigeria. Is it time to call her home? Maybe we need a motherly hand at the helm, one who doesn't just remove subsidies, but removes suffering along with it. Let's pause and consider. Now, if Okonjo-Iweala was running an oil-rich country, let's say population of 150 million people, I wonder if there would be petrol scarcities and price hikes. I wonder what the state of the economy will be. Will the streets of the country be filled with families smiling as they pull out the picnic baskets each evening to share neighborly greetings along with homemade salads as they greet? I mean, judging by her track record, 2 decades of transformative leadership in global finance, strategic policy making, and unapologetic brilliance, she might just have all the answers to what a country needs. With her at the wheel, perhaps the country's economy wouldn't seem like a perpetual traffic jam most African countries find themselves. And here's the twist today. Now, while we crown Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as Breakfast Extra's weekend warrior, she's not just the first African, the first woman, and the first Nigerian to lead the WTO twice. She's also proof that competence, when mixed with charisma and conviction, leaves competitors miles behind, so far behind that they didn't even bother showing up this time. Maybe I should begin a private call for her attention, and when I get it, I shall bury my knees to the ground and ask her to adopt me. And I want citizenship to that imaginary country. It makes you wonder as well if a country like Nigeria would ever consider a female president. Now the question is Nigeria ready? Well, India had Indira Gandhi, Germany had Angela Merkel, Liberia had Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and the UK famously had Margaret Thatcher. So what's stopping Nigeria? These nations didn't do badly during these administrations at all. Hardly. They flourished, charting bold new paths. And so to everyone or anyone doubting the idea of a Madam President, well, there's your answer. But it's just a thought, too. I'm just saying. And as a young, ambitious woman in the media myself, I would like to think that the door or that particular door is available, and maybe one day, just one day, I or any other well-suited female might want to walk through it. So this is me, jiggling the lock and hoping that it is accessible for womankind. Now, as we get cozy for today's show, let's roll out the welcome mat for you, our loyal viewers, and also my co-host, Mazino Appeal, and my humble self, Darshan Usman, who bring you the big stories, the reports, and the little doses of hope that the new week holds as potential. Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
Well, good morning and welcome. Welcome to December. Happy New Month.
Happy New Month to you, Mazino.
I've never been able to say that with so much aplomb.
Excitement?
Did you use that word before?
Yes, I did. Why so?
I don't know. It's a different kind of December for me. It's the first December that I'm willing to actually express myself when it comes to the cheer that people bring to the month or the season. I've never been able to express that before. And this year, for very definitive reasons, I'm actually looking forward to that cheer that people bring at the end of the year.
I think I feel the same way too. I have no idea why. Probably, people actually say it's just a month left, but there's still hope that something good will happen in this month before 2025. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, hope is a very good thing, and everybody needs it. You out there as well.
Yes,
so this December, remember now, make it a very different one. Hey, it's the month of lights, love, and all the festivities that wrap up the year in grand style. It's the final stretch of 2024, only about 31 days. Can't remember, 30 days of November. So. In any case, here on Breakfast Extra, we're starting strong with an edition packed with full, stories, big stories that matter most to you. Whether you're sipping your morning coffee, gearing up for church, or just simply lounging in bed, stay with us because we're going to take you through a Sunday filled with depth, insight, and just the right pinch of wit, like she started out. Now, here's what's on the menu for today. First off, we assess Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's first 4 years as WTO boss, analyzing the milestones, the triumphs, and the challenges that have defined her historic tenure, and also her re-election unopposed. We also shine a spotlight on World AIDS Day, which is today, actually, exploring how Nigeria continues to combat stigma and raise awareness around HIV. We'll delve into the progress made so far and the hurdles still to overcome in this critical public health battle. Then we turn to the telecom sector as the Nigeria Telecommunications Commission gears up to announce new tariffs on December 13th. What should Nigerians expect, and how will this impact consumers and also businesses alike? And then we'll talk about the miners in South Africa still trapped. But about the NCC and the 13th of December, which is a Friday, which means it's Friday the 13th, bad luck day.
It's a Friday the 13th.
It's a Friday.
It's quite scary.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
so why choose that day?
I really don't know.
But that's on the side. But if they increase tariffs, there's a lot that's going to happen. It's going to affect you as a person, as an individual, and then businesses. And if you note, businesses all run on mobile currently. Reason being that everybody's doing this digital thing where you need data. So if the prices are going to go up, I can only imagine how much data is going to cost.
You know, yesterday while we were talking with the economists, they said a lot about, how price hikes, is actually a way of managing the inflation and stabilizing it and all that. I really don't know if it's the same for this telecom, sector.
I think, you see, and I was having this conversation with our producer, Matthew, who doesn't respond to his messages, by the way. So it was a very slow conversation. Matthew, it's always very slow speaking with you when we text. And I said to him, you can't blame the telcos. This is my own 2 pence. Because let's face it, inflation, there's the rise in petrol prices or diesel prices, there's Forex that changed and everything. So they are under pressure. And that has affected the service that they put out. It is rubbish currently. So, yeah, when was the last time you tried to make a call once and it went through that first time?
Besides that, when was the last time you tried to recharge your phone and you actually got what you wanted?
Exactly.
Most of them hardly actually even sell because there's so many services where you can actually go and buy, airtime, but they don't even have that. They don't sell anymore. And in most cases, it's inflated. I actually had a call, you put a call through to, one of the telecom service that I actually use just a few days ago. Why? Because I chose a particular service and they gave me another one that actually suited their needs. Do you get?
Yeah, I've tried this one.
Exactly. I ended up bearing the
It's like going to Jankara Market and them trying to sell you an XXXL jacket when you only just
exactly. And there's been
XL.
so many complaints of recent in the past 2 weeks about that particular, service provider. Yeah,
it's been rubbish lately across all service providers, and whether you like it or not, there has to be something. There has to be a policy that put in place to make. Well, we have the regulatory board, but
NCC,
I don't know how much they're doing. But data is key currently, and data is the one thing that I believe that if we can actually try and regulate the expense, it'll do well for businesses, for people, because everybody is currently on data, whether you like it or not. When was the last time you made a true call? Remember, you always use the WhatsApp service?
I hardly use that.
Which one? You hardly use the WhatsApp one?
I always use voice calls. I love to use voice calls. I'm not a fan of, a WhatsApp call.
Now, this is another conversation now. Is it too personal when people ring you up on WhatsApp?
I really can't say, because most times when I accept calls, via that particular app, there's always a delay. It's always messy.
I get you. Yeah.
So I'd rather just, do a direct call.
It's also a function of where you live. If you live in Aton now, for instance. I'm sorry. In any case, welcome to the show for a Sunday. Now, we're going to be starting with our very big story, our very first big story for today. And like we said from before, we're going to be taking a look at the last 4 years of the WTO Director General, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala herself. So let's do that short break we do, and then we'll be starting with our guests here. So do stay tuned.
Now, in February 2021, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala shattered glass ceilings to become the first woman, the first African to lead the World Trade Organization as its Director General. With a resume that boasts 2 terms as Nigeria's finance minister and time as managing director of the World Bank, she brought unparalleled expertise to a role tasked with steering global trade through one of its most tumultuous periods. Now, her first 4 years have been nothing short of transformative, from navigating the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic to advocating for equitable vaccine distribution and also championing reforms for a more inclusive and fair global trading system. Okonjo-Iweala has centered her place as a formidable force on the global stage. Now, under her leadership, the WTO has prioritized resolving trade disputes, easing supply chain bottlenecks, and also promoting trade opportunities for developing nations like Nigeria in Africa. Now, her push for a WTO agreement on pandemic response, including making vaccines accessible to poorer countries, has actually been lauded as a landmark achievement. Additionally, she has been an outspoken advocate for trade policies that address climate change and digital trade, demonstrating her visionary approach to tackling 21st century challenges. Now, with her reappointment for a 2nd term, the world eagerly anticipates what more she will achieve as she continues to advocate for multilateralism and fairness in global trade.
First of all, that's a big word to get one time. I couldn't say it. For joining us to discuss Dr. Okonjo-Iweala's legacy and assess her first 4 years as the WTO Director General is Dr. Femi Egbeshola, the President of the Small Business Owners Association, a well-versed economist, if I do say so myself, because I had a conversation with him during the week. You're welcome, Dr. Femi Egbeshola. Thank you very much for joining us this morning again.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Dashin, if you would please, go ahead. Let's.
All right. I think I spoke to him a few days ago on the news as well. It's a pleasure to have you, by the way. Now, how would you assess Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's performance as WTO Director General, over the past 4 years?
Oh, yes. I give it to her. I think she has done exceptionally well, and that's what guaranteed her the new position for the next 4 years, counting from September 1, 2025. During her first 4 years, she's been able to do a lot of transformation in WTO. She's been able to reform so many policies that has to do with trade, that has to do with negotiation, and that has to do with inequalities, particularly when it comes to low-income countries and challenged countries, third world countries. She's been able to liberalize trade such that it's now easier for those countries to trade in the global markets and become global players also. I think she has also been very transparent during her first 4 years, and she has also run a government of inclusivity, because she made sure that all the countries, all the partner countries are carried along, particularly in the general meetings. And she also ensured that she strengthened all the hands that made up the WTO. And I think that's one of the reasons we did not have anybody competing with her during this contest for the new person that will lead in the WTO for the next 4 years.
It's good that you'd actually bring that in and talk about the fact that she came in for a 2nd term uncontested. Do you particularly note any particular policies that she might have executed that made that the instance? Perhaps maybe even when it comes to Africa. I do remember there was a fishing trade agreement she made where it is that developed countries cannot access African waters. And if they did, there was a very steep penalty, a very mouth-watering penalty for Africa. So what kind of policies could have engineered her unopposed 2nd term?
Yes, that's one of it. Another is that she intervened in the trade of agricultural and agro commodities globally, such that it is now easier, particularly for Africans, to now send out their agro products to anywhere in the world. You would understand that before coming on board, we have so many policies that mitigate export of agro commodities from Nigeria to many parts of the world, particularly the Europe, UK, and US. But that has been liberalized now. She has also made it possible, particularly for the Asian countries, in particular focus China, to be able to now trade seamlessly all over the world, particularly in the US. She has been able to liberalize it so much so that many of the bans before now were China and Asian products are now being lifted or being liberalized to the extent that if you go to America now, you will discover that most of the products that the Americans are using are coming from outside America, and that's a good one for the global market. However, the negative part of it is that the American government is against our nomination because they see her as pro-China or China ally, and they see her also supporting the blacks. But then we need to come to an equilibrium whereby the equality will be among all countries, all players in the global market, particularly when it comes to trade. And that's one thing she has been spearheading, and we think that it's a good one for the third world country, it's a good one for Africa, it's a good one for Asia, it's a good one for the entire world. She's also pushing a lot in climate change. And when it comes to climate change, you know that the advanced countries contribute more to climate damage. And they've been pushing it to the third world, they've been pushing it to Africa over time. But she's also been able to bring a balance in this, to say, yes, you are the one contributing more to climate change. And of course, that is the case when it comes to issues that has to do with climate change. You must contribute more resources to ensure that we reverse the trend, and at the same time be more committed and responsible to ensuring that climate change is tackled and brought to bear.
All right, now, Dr. Igbeshola, now as the president of, Small Business Owners Association in Nigeria, can you tell us how her tenure has actually impacted small businesses in Nigeria, especially when it comes to competing internationally?
Yes, like I mentioned the other time, one of the major things she was able to do was to liberalize trade, particularly for the third world countries. Nigeria is more or less one of. Before now, it's very difficult for us to export some commodities, particularly food commodities like yam, like beans, like millets, and some other products to particularly America and Europe. And for now, it's been liberalized. We've been able to have that window where we can now trade these products globally, not just in Europe and America, but everywhere without hindrance. If America or UK or Europe accept the products, it becomes a global acceptance. And that's what we are enjoying now. And particularly now that the economy is challenged, we find it difficult to sell locally because our currency is also devalued. So it's a big deal for us being able to now take our product out of the shores of the country to the global market to sell and earn dollars or euro, which is more valuable and translates to more profit for us. We give it to Okonjo-Iweala on that. And for that, I think there's every reason for the business community to also bring out their loud voice to congratulate Okonjo-Iweala for the big feat she's done for the past 4 years, or about 4 years, and looking forward for another 4 years of massive transformation when it comes to trade and negotiations.
Mm-hmm. I'll give it up to her as well here at News Central. 2 terms as finance minister, 2 terms now, starting next year as World Trade Organization DG. Now, the question is, however, with such stellar performance and achievements from the past, doesn't it seem like Africa, doesn't it seem like Nigeria is losing out on something, some authority that should be in some place or some really particularly important position? Are we losing out on leadership when it comes to Okonjo-Iweala being elected a 2nd term as the WTO? Could she do more inside of the Nigerian or a Nigerian administrative system, do you think?
Well, yes. If given the opportunity, I think she has a lot to contribute to the Nigerian economy and the growth of our economy here. But then she has done it in the past. Like you mentioned, she was the former Minister of Finance, and for some time she was also the Minister for Foreign Affairs. And during those years, she contributed massively to restructuring our finance policy, our fiscal policy, and till today we're enjoying it. You remember the Treasury single, I think it's the TCA, she did that, whereby every single money goes to one account for government. There's also the payroll system, which she did at that time too. I think these are very golden initiatives that is still enduring till now. But then we need some of our whole to be in the global space. I think having her there is a good one for us. It's a very good brand of the country. It shows that Nigeria is not just about corruption. Nigeria is not just about Yahoo and all of that and crime. Nigeria could also produce very good products, and she's spearheading and leading that exceptionally. We also need her there so that Africa can also become global players when it comes to trade. She has done a lot to support Africa during that 4 years. She has also done a lot to bring African trade to the limelight, and we need that. We cannot just be playing locally. We need to also be in the international scene. She's one woman that is representing us very well, exceptionally well in the international scene, and we need more of Nigerians to come out to also become leaders like Okojo-Iweala. And I'm also sure that she's also mentoring and grooming many other leaders who she must be part of those who are also being consulted by the government for critical decisions, particularly when it comes to economy, finance, and trade. And I'm sure she, in her own large way, she's influencing some policy reforms in the country. And I'm also sure that some of the new initiatives of government has some of her contributions.
Let's focus on her 2 times as Nigerian Minister of Finance. Now, during which she actually helped in negotiating where we had $30 billion debt actually wiped out. And I think cancellation of about $18 billion of debt as well. She did so well. Her negotiations are fantastic. She also was part of the team that helped out with the government integration financial management system, where they helped work against corruption in Nigeria. A very transparent system it became at the time. So the question, like I said from before, would it be too much to ask if we said, okay, for a second term that her focus should be plenty on Nigeria, especially with the debts that we find ourselves accruing currently from our current administration?
Well, you're right. I think Nigeria needs to continue to engage her. The Nigerian government needs to continue to engage as much as they can, because she has contributed so much, particularly writing off our debts from the Paris Club creditors as at the time she was the minister. And that can also happen again if Nigeria use her influence, her capacity to the limit to help us also have that same or even more than what she did that time. But I think for me, it's better she remains in the global scene. She has more role to play in the global scene. She has more influence to make in the global scene. And I also think that Africa needs a representative to be able to liberalize trade in the global scene. So we should not be just selfish about Nigeria alone. Africa as a whole, we need someone who can support us to make us grow in trade, grow in economy. And I must also say that she's also contributing a lot to Nigeria when it comes to influencing WTO to support Nigeria. I've seen quite a number of initiatives that has happened in Nigeria for the past 2-3 years that is being influenced and sponsored by the WTO. These are some of the things that are gains for Nigeria. I also believe too that, like I mentioned the other time, government must find a way to continue to engage her, to continue to see how she can help and advise when it comes to policies and policy reforms, particularly when it comes to trade, and at the same time to see how they can engage her, even while on seats as the chair of the WTO, to still help us negotiate for debt issues and debt cancellation. I also want to see the governments using their best possible attempts to see that she is mentoring those ones, so that eventually, when she retires, we'll have many more Okojo-Iwealas in the country, both in men and women, taking the affairs of our country and becoming global players too.
Okay, now we've talked about, trade, and we've talked about, how she has pushed for so much. And one other thing we know is, technology is actually taking over a lot, in our time. And we know that she's actually pushed for more digital trade. Would like for you to tell us how, you feel it has affected sectors like, the tech sector and also the e-commerce sector.
Well, in today's world, whether anybody likes it or not, if you are not adopting technology, adopting digital technology, sooner or later one will fade out. So it's a good thing that Okojo-Iweala is also spearheading the use of technology, digital technology, to drive trade. And that is being adopted everywhere in the world now, not just Nigeria. We see everyone now engaging in sales, trade, and marketing with the use of digital platforms. And that's where the world is also turning to. You also see a lot of fintechs now using technology to support trade. We also see a lot of startups now in Nigeria and outside Nigeria using technology to support trade. That's the only way we can become globally relevant and have more access to the market. And I'm happy that it's one of the focus of the WTO under the leadership of Uzodinma, and a lot, millions of billions of dollars have been spent to improve digital technology, particularly when it comes to trade. Today, we also have different hubs that are being created and supported by WTO to enhance trade, and they are free. It's just for you to download and begin to support your business, particularly in terms of access to market. We in Nigeria here, particularly we in the business community, are using some of these applications, some of these digital technologies to also support our business, and it is bringing out the best in us. And that's why you see that even with the many myriads of challenges we have in Nigeria, the SME community is still thriving and succeeding. Many thanks to people like Uzodinma that are doing one thing or the other to support our community. One of it is the digital technology that is being brought to trade, to markets, and to negotiations that is bringing very good results. And I'm also sure that this new 4 years, she's going to do much more because she promised to bring about equality, more of equality among nations. And that means that we will not see one big country bigger than us when it comes to trade. We will also be able to trade liberally on the same table without any fear or favor.
Being a member of teams that actually have the responsibility for climate change in the world, not just in Africa now, one has to ask what her contributions have been regarding Africa, seeing that along with e-commerce that we've just talked about, there's a very big hunger for energy. And in Africa, where we're trying to transit into renewable energy, what policies has she been a part of that actually helped with this system in Africa, especially here in Nigeria, where we're still battling with fossil fuels and Dangote refineries? What could she do as well in the next 4 years that could focus on renewable energy in Africa that could help businesses?
Yes, the past 4 years, she's been able to bring on the table equality when it comes to climate change and climate change issues. One of it is that she made the Western world realize that they are the major contributor to climate issues, climate challenges. And of course, that has been pushed to Africa before now, that it is Africa that is actually polluting the climate. It is Africa that is responsible for the climate issues that we have. But she's been able to push it back to them, that they have more industries, they have more pollution in their countries. Yes, we may say that the Africans have not been able to manage pollution well, but how much is the quantity of the pollution generated from Africa? That she has been able to do. Again, also, she has also been able to make sure that for the fact that they contribute more to climate issues, they should also pay more when it comes to supporting initiatives that is to arrest climate change anomalies, and that she's been able to do. So for the next 4 years, we want to see her pushing more on that. We want to see ensuring that initiatives that will also help African countries, particularly Nigeria, to accept climate change, to go green, to go blue, and to also adopt initiatives that will help to recycling a lot of that happens more in Nigeria. One way it can happen is by helping to shape policies in Nigeria that has to do with climate change, and at the same time also sponsoring initiatives with funding from the WTO that will also support climate change initiative. Yes, government is doing the little they can in Nigeria, but you and I agree that that is far not enough. If you have funding from organizations like WTO coming up to support climate change initiatives in Nigeria, I'm sure a lot will happen. Many of our people now are not even aware of climate change, they don't know what it is. So a lot of advocacy, a lot of awareness needs to be done, and a lot of structures needs to be put in place to arrest climate change. That cannot be achieved if Uzodinma focus on this for Nigeria and particularly Africa for the next 4 years.
Yeah, but Dr. Gbeshola, let's also note that to be able to effect climate change or anything that has to work for climate change, even the countries have to be prepared themselves. Africa doesn't seem like as if, well, most of Africa doesn't seem like it's prepared for climate change. We're still exporting fridges and freezers that destroy the atmosphere. We are a dumping ground. Are there any policies so far, whether by Uzodinma or by the body she represents, that have helped us to mitigate or cancel out these imports into Africa that help us degrade further our environment?
I would not say that Africa, particularly Nigeria, is not prepared for climate change or are not building structures now. You will discover that last year, circular economy was launched in Nigeria. Lagos was the center where it was launched, where the federal government invited climate change experts and adopted circular economy as a way to go in Nigeria. And now we also have an action plan for the next 5 years on climate change and circular economy. And that's why you now see states like Lagos State, they're banning sachet water, banning plastic water, banning styrofoams and all of that, and ensuring that every state in Nigeria now have an agency that controls emission and pollution. We also see that there are now structures in all the states that have to do with recycling of waste. And we still have a long way to go, really. But there are some pockets of initiative here and there. There are some structures here and there that is being created by the government to mitigate against the issues of climate change. I also understand too that there's now a national committee on climate change formed by the federal government to also draw up a roadmap that we can use to arrest climate change, aside from the action plan that's already been drafted. So this may not be enough to arrest the enormous issues that surround climate change in Nigeria, but I think there are baby steps that we can begin to take advantage on and begin to see how we can go there. Yes, we need expert support. We need funding. We also need a lot of awareness among our people. It's the duty of the federal government, but anything that has to do with the climate is also the duty of everybody involved. Because when it happens, we are all affected, even more than those big actors in government. We, the common man, are more affected. So I think a lot of awareness needs to be done so that everybody takes it as a responsibility to be climate change conscious and to know what to do to put our climate and our environment in good shape. I'm happy that you're also discussing this on the TV station. I think the media too needs to do a lot of work in sensitizing the public about climate change issues and how they can be responsible and help their community to align with the SDG goals, particularly those that has to do with climate change.
You know, Mazino actually did ask, did say that, some African countries don't seem to be ready for, climate change. And it actually made me wonder, if Okonjo-Iweala, meets for example, we know that she has actually done so much for developing countries and all that. And I know, it's actually still part of her plan. But do you think that, Nigerian leaders or Nigeria in itself would be ready to work with her, with some when it comes to some of her policies?
Well, we have no choice as a country than to do what we have. Whether we like it or not, we just must work with her because the negative implications of climate change is already imminent on our country. You can see the way diseases are ravaging now, particularly cancer. Now it has been detected that there are microplastics in our blood system. These are serious issues that every responsible government should be ready to embrace with totality and perhaps pay more than the usual attention to. In Nigeria in particular, like I mentioned, we are beginning to wake up. We've not woken up well enough, but we're beginning to wake up. And I also want to believe that Okonjo-Iweala and her team will do more in Nigeria, particularly third world country, as she has been doing before now, to ensure that things go the right way. African countries now, quite a number of countries are also taking responsibility when it comes to climate change. This initiative that is being adopted here in Nigeria, the banning single plastic use and all of that, has been initiated 2-3 years ago by some countries like Uganda, Kenya, Ghana, and even Mozambique. Yes, they've initiated it 2-3 years ago. You can't find single-use plastics in their system. Meaning that they are also ready to accept the new initiatives that comes with climate change. But many African countries are not yet ready. And that means a lot needs to be done about African countries, preparing them for climate change matters and how to address climate change issues. And the only way that can be done is by building institutions. The influence of just one person like Okonjo-Iweala may not be able to do much. Each economy needs to be strong institutions to see to climate change matters and also be ready to make mechanism work for them to be able to institute laws, bills that will arrest climate change issues. And for those who are not ready to cope, to abide with those laws, punitive measures should be stand out to be able to ensure that there's full compliance to climate change laws in each of the countries. We've not gotten there, but I believe we will get there over time because we cannot run away from the negative impact of climate change matters. And the more we go into the years, the more serious the implications will be if it is not arrested now.
Well, Dr. Egbeshola, now you did, speak at length on, some of the things that she should be doing in the next 4 years. But then with her reappointment, we're about winding down, I would love for you in like a minute to tell us what you think her top priorities should be. First, top 3 priorities. Let's start with that.
Yes, I think the first priority to me should be that WTO, under the leadership of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala for the next 4 years, should be to strengthen economies. Best way to strengthen economies is through trade. If economies are doing well through trade, there will be no need for them to be borrowing money from the World Bank or other funding institutions. And that will make economies more structured and more dependable on themselves, which would bring about the economy. I also want to see Okonjo-Iweala influencing policies that will liberalize trade the more. Liberalize trade in the sense that we need to make the world really borderless. Like the African Continental Free Trade Area we have in Africa now, that makes it borderless for us to sell our product anywhere in Africa. We should be able to extend it, particularly to the developed countries, where we must be able to sell our products. Again, too, I want to see Okonjo-Iweala working on improving standards of the third world products. One of the mitigating factors against the exportation of third world products and services is because they are considered as substandard and unbranded, and this can also be worked on. If the WTO makes pragmatic approach to be able to support industries in the third world country, in the developing countries, to be able to meet up with standards, this can only be done with very strong initiative and funding. I also want to see Okonjo-Iweala bringing about unity among all the 164 countries, and perhaps even bringing more countries on board so that they can be part of the WTO, and negotiations would be more borderless among these countries. Finally, I want to see WTO bringing about peace. There are some countries that are not happy that we are having another black woman taking the leadership of WTO. But our new tenure should be able to bring more peace so that after our exit, we can see very active black players on the WTO board because she's been able to set legacies, structures, institutions that will live beyond our time.
Dr. Egbeshola, thank you very much. Makes you wonder what it's going to be like, because Dashin asked this question earlier, what it would be like if she ran a, let's say, West African country with population 150 million, oil-rich, by the way.
Hypothetically.
What do you think it will be like? Would it be bliss?
It would be paradise. I see her bringing about paradise if she has opportunity to contribute for some countries, perhaps West African countries as a whole. She is full of energy, even at her age. She's full of ideas. She's very intelligent. She has excellent leadership qualities, and she's a well-bred. And no doubt she has so many awards to her name. And we look forward to having some more people like her in our ecosystem taking the lead in Nigeria, in West Africa, and in Africa.
That's the best way to end this. That's a love letter to Okonjo-Iweala herself. Thank you very much, Dr. Egbeshola, for being with us on the show here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. That was such a beautiful love letter, now, wasn't it? Your question is answered. It will be paradise. It will be
paradise.
Yes, indeed.
That does it for me. Thank you.
Now, do stay tuned. We've got more coming your way. We take a look at the papers, some strips, and then more inside of Breakfast Extra.
The time to act is now.
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 And now let's take a look at what the front pages of major newspapers are actually saying on the dailies at the moment. We'll begin with the Independent newspaper. That's the Sunday Independent newspaper. And we have the lead story there that talks about military blamed for poor showing in Benue bloodbath. And there's subheaders there. That says local officials, leaders worry over troops' commitment. OPWS, Homeland Security, mum over accusations, and also fear of another attack strong and widespread. There are more major stories on the front page. We have one that says that states may miss SDG goal 4 target over poor funding of basic education, and that is according to a report right there on the front page of Sunday Independent. We also have at the top of the page there, it says how activation of Port Harcourt refinery silenced NNPCL, Tinubu's scathing critics. Okpara Law accuses Obaseki, editors of Gang Up, to discredit Edo Guber poll. And then we also have a story there that talks about can seeking objective evaluation of airstrip license granted to Living Faith Church. Now, just beside the major story there, there's Cooper boat mishap. Kogi government expresses shock, condoles with victims, and also calls for safer marine transportation, is also there. And at the bottom, economic growth, NBS figures unreliable, says analysts. We did talk about, at length on this yesterday, but then there's subheaders that says, claim statistics illusionary, not reflective of realities, insists report intended to please political leaders. And on the footnote there, we have PDP ready to lead opposition coalition in 2027, and this is according to Deputy Youth Leader.
Very interesting one there regarding the figures, because I was beginning to have high hopes about them, only for you to come this morning and tell me that they're illusionary. I'm wondering how illusionary they might be, who was dreaming them up, because it got the president excited. So now what do we do? I don't know. What other papers do we have, Dashin?
All right. Another paper that we're actually taking a look at now, we have the Sunday Punch newspaper.
Now, for the Sunday Punch newspaper, minimum wage NLC strike may fail as states pull out. I would like to imagine that most of the states actually have complied with the minimum wage, apart from 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. Imo, Sokoto, Katsina, Oyo, Akwa Ibom withdraw from industrial action. Kaduna, Zamfara, Nasara, FCT down tools on Monday. Pay us our money. At the bottom there, Thierry Gold tells of 3 Osun communities under siege of illegal miners. That's a big issue in Africa. Now, we're going to be talking about the South Africa situation at the end of the show. I almost dropped out over financial struggles, says Uniben best graduate. What a story. At the top, with the picture of Obi and Atiku there, 2027, Atiku Obi denied joint presidential bid after reunion and capsized boat. 54 bodies recovered, others remain missing. And how Abacha would have executed Obasanjo. This is a story by Gowon. Gowon is a very interesting person to listen to if you've ever been in any function where he was telling tales of the past. The old Nigeria is grand. Tell you what, Dashin, while we're doing this, can I throw in 1 or 2 strips? I'd like to throw in 1 or 2 strips. Is that okay, Dashin?
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right, fantastic. So let's bring it over this way. Now, we've got a couple of strips, as you know, every single Sunday or Saturday. We like to take a look at the editorial cartoons because they're fun. They're art, imitating life. And most times they make it easier for us to swallow because, it's just a bit too doom and gloom out there. So let's start with our very first strip for today. Where is it? Hang on a second. There it is. Business Day newspaper, I am finished. And do you know who that is?
Macron?
No, the person inside of the platter there. That's the IPOB.
The IPOB leader. That's
not Nnamdi Kanu
not
now.
Nnamdi, the one that was arrested.
Yes, exactly, in Finland. And of course, Nigerian judiciary trial, Nigerian politics, and Nigerian defense all ready for the meal. Let's put it that way. I'm not sure who the artist is, if it's still a Suko for this one, but I always love that Business Day takes out time to absolutely define specifically how or who or what the art is as it imitates life. Still from Business Day newspaper, we've got another one here. The economy is really growing. Oh, isn't it? As we're sucking up everything into tax. Now, I don't know if you agree with me, Dashin, but people always draw comparison between Lagos State and the Nigeria of today. The Lagos State of before, when it was actually Tinubu as the governor, and what Nigeria is becoming now. They argue of a system where it's just to take and take and take from the people, but then again, you get some infrastructural development. And that's what's happening in Nigeria right now, only that you can't do that on a scale like Nigeria is what the argument is. I don't know what your concerns are regarding that argument.
I think most people are actually tired of, anytime money comes in, first thing is infrastructure. How about, policies that would affect the Nigerians themselves, that would, make it enjoyable for them to live in the country? It doesn't have to be all about infrastructure.
Well, then again, if you went outside of Africa, you'd be saying the other way around, because infrastructure makes life so much bearable.
Yeah,
I could, if you went to work in an air-conditioned public bus, for instance, that would ease most of your stress. Face it. Compare that to Lagos instance, where you have to struggle to get inside of a rickety bus where the rain is falling, it rains inside even doubly so. But
you have the BRT and you have trains now, so that has to be made up for that.
Thank you very much. Are they enough? Just 2 days ago, I was looking at the blue rail from Mile 2 to Marina, and I was counting the frequency. And it took a while for this one machine, or I think there's two of them, to actually make a round trip, because I was stationed somewhere I could see them go by. And I'm wondering, everybody coming from Okokomaiko all the way to the Marina, that volume of people, does that suffice? Does it suffice for that volume of people? I will tell you already, no. And then the system from Marina is still not well thought out, because once you get off of the train at the Marina, you still have to walk a distance, perhaps the rest of the distance to your place of work.
When I talked about, it not only being about infrastructure, I'm talking about it reflecting, especially when it comes to food prices, because, food is life. You can't just keep, dwelling on infrastructure while, people move on with empty stomachs.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? So
I get you there. I know you still have one or two papers to the front pages.
I do.
So let's go with, what are we going with now?
We're going with Sunday Times now, and we have a few stories there. The major one talks about, the lead story there talks about Nigerians contribute over 40 billion naira to UK in visa fees from 2023 and 2024.
Just.
Did you say just?
It gives you a very big picture of how people want out, which is sad, really.
Okay, now let's move on. Now, we have former Aviation Minister Chidoka resigns from the PDP. And I begged Abacha not to execute Obasanjo in 1995. You did talk about Gowon earlier,
Great
and this is attributed to him. And so should we be thanking him for Obasanjo being alive today?
I guess so.
And then on the footnotes there, we have Julius Berger has confidence in Nigeria's economy, says NIPR president. I know they actually recently the contract that they had with the federal government was expired and all that. But let's hope. Let's see what happens.
Wait, so it's expired.
It's expired, or
and now this.
Yes, now
I'm sorry.
I think the Nigerian government said they were not going to renew, the contract.
And then
there's been lots of challenges when it comes to Julius Berger, and we're seeing this. We're seeing this now. But then let's take a look at the story at the top. Lagos governorship, not a gift. PDP says or tells Sheyi Tinubu.
Okay, interesting one. I've still got a couple of strips that I would like to show. Hope you don't mind, Dashin. Let's do this little newspaper mix of salad. Let's see, we're going to change this real soon and give you, oh, hang on. All right, the Guardian newspaper's got this one. Now, Dashin, just so you know, the Guardian has a penchant for always having these talk bubbles, as you can see here. It's always their thing. So I always have to read them out every morning. Oh, oddly enough, many of our governors don't hit the ground running when they're sworn in. Exactly. They hit the ground running when they leave office. They run helter-skelter from EFCC, ICPC, and Code of Conduct Bureau. Who are we talking about? It's the return of the Mac, Yahaya Bello.
Mac Daddy himself.
Yahaya Bello made it to court during the week, second time without representation, which was, I think he's going to be in custody for the next 2 weeks. But it's interesting to see the system going, this process happening right now, because we never thought that we were going to see it. We just thought it was going to evaporate. But yes, it is a system in Nigeria where everybody runs after, hits the ground running once they step off of that office, and then is out the door and never to be seen again.
And most people have actually said that it's the reason why they always want to go back to office, to evade, you know, some of the heat that comes, you know, after the immunity. After the immunity has actually expired. A lot of, you know, I've been using a lot of expired today, like.
Well, I'm geared up to see exactly where the Yahaya Bello instance is going to end up, because not everybody has faith in that one. But I want to see, because the players here, the EFCC, the APC government, and then Yahaya himself, who is also an APC member, the dynamics are very interesting.
Did you know, I actually saw what Nigerians are actually saying about this particular case is that the same way the EFCC usually parades, you know, fraudsters, you know, and drug dealers and, you know, others, right? They want the EFCC to start parading Nigerian leaders who, you know, have been accused of fraudulent activities. And they actually said they want to see Yahaya Bello in shackles. One person actually said that on, I think I saw it on Instagram, that he wants to see him in shackles and paraded, just like they do every other Nigerian. What makes them different, you know, from every other Nigerians out there that are being arrested for fraudulent activities?
Now, you know, one other thing that's also out there as an argument is that this time we want to be sure exactly where he's being kept custody. Because if you remember last month and the month before, it was a Nigerian prison system versus Bobrisky and Very Dark Man. Where exactly is Yahaya Bello going to be staying? Has anybody asked this question? Are we sure that he's in the custody or in some other custody? But let's take a look at another paper, shall we? What do you have?
All right, let's take a look at the Sunday Tribune. Wow, so many stories here, but let's start from the top there. We have on post-Ondo governorship election, APC, PDP in war of words. And we have writers there that says, Ajayi's going to tribunal, a wild goose chase, says Okunamo. And APC members using Tinubu's name to scare us not to go to court. But if you want to find out more, you can grab a copy of Sunday Tribune to read more on that. And this is attributed to Fadaka. We have the lead story that talks about how Gowon begged Abacha not to kill Obasanjo.
Everybody's talking about this. It must be a big deal. I have to see this after the show.
Exactly, on page 2 of the Sunday Tribune. And we have writers on that particular story that talks about ex-head of state recalls 1995 coup saga, decries unending crisis rocking Nigeria. And then there's one there just below it on the tax reform bills. And proposed tax law will help grow Nigeria's economy, says experts. A lot of experts seem to be very, very optimistic about this one. We are ready to pay if, says manufacturer, and also Deputy Senate President under fire. And also, we'll just take one more, and it's HIV and AIDS. You know, on HIV and AIDS, it says Nigeria tops global mortality, children infection. This is really, really a sad one.
Very sad. It is World AIDS Day today, by the way. We also have focus on that at the end of the show. So viewers, do stay tuned as we commemorate World AIDS Day and what we can do to help stop the infection, and also stigma is a big deal.
But now, you know, the NMA chair on the newspaper is actually saying that people no longer fear the disease.
Yeah, yeah, it would seem so. All right, listen, Dashin, Vanguard on this side of things, the strips, I saved this one for last because it's the best one for today. So if we'll bring it back this way for a second. Now, this is my MVP for today's strips. Well put, fantastic, because this is what you hear in your daily life as you go about business. Everybody says, Oga, 90% of the passengers I carry said they did not vote for this administration, for this government. And then the Oga at the back, Oga at the top says, one day, you carry the percentage that I'll tell you the truth. And that's a fact. Nobody seems to want to take ownership of this current government. Why?
Because everyone is suffering. Everyone is feeling the heat.
So you're saying that everybody's had a change of mind?
Everyone is feeling the heat. Even the elites are experiencing it. It's not easy for everybody. But, you know, the poor people, you know, are the ones suffering it the most.
I can imagine so. In any case, that would be it for the dailies and the strips, a collabo of sorts. Thank you very much, Dashin. A very nice dynamic today. Let's take a break now. I'll bring you the news at the top of the hour, and there's more conversation inside of Breakfast Extra. Stay tuned.
Welcome back from that break, and welcome to Wellness Central. And should I call myself Dr. Darshan right now? But no, I'm just joking. Now, every year, December 1st serves as a reminder of our collective commitment to combating HIV/AIDS as the world comes together to mark World AIDS Day. Now, this year's theme emphasizes the urgent need to fight stigma and promote innovation in the fight against HIV, while also reaffirming the fundamental rights to health for everyone, regardless of status. Now, as we turn the spotlight on Nigeria, a nation grappling with the challenges of pervasive stigma, it is actually crucial to examine how awareness, public health initiatives, and community efforts are shaping the fight against this disease. Now, Nigeria's battle with HIV/AIDS is as much about medical interventions as it is about societal acceptance and support. The stigma attached to the disease often silences voices, discourages testing, and also hinders treatment access. Now, we just saw a report that says that people are no longer scared of the disease. But amidst these challenges, positive strides are being made through advocacy, education, and also grassroots innovations led by public health champions and also youth groups alike. And today on Wellness Central, again, we explore how Nigeria can scale up its efforts in tackling both the stigma and also the virus itself, ensuring that no one is left behind.
Indeed. So joining us to unpack this critical conversation are Samsudeen Karim, who's joining us online. He's National Deputy Coordinator of the Association of Positive Youth Living with HIV in Nigeria. You're welcome, Samsudeen. Thank you very much for joining us. And we also have Dr. Olawale Ogunlana, Public Health Content Creator and Health Awareness Champion. Yes, he is young. He's also a doctor. You're welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Masvino.
Fantastic. I'm also going to be asking the producers if I can tell my story on today's show, because this is a topic that's very close to my heart.
Yes,
but I'm going to wait that till I'm going to wait for the end of the show to tell that one. But World AIDS Day, very interesting that Nigeria has come so far when it comes to AIDS awareness. I've been part of programs that have actually pushed that message to very, very hinterland type places in Nigeria. And it's very close to me, like I said, because there's an experience that I had that really cemented that. But what is the situation currently, the stats, when it comes to HIV prevalence in Nigeria, stigmatization, and culture?
Okay, so thank you once again for having me. HIV in itself is actually quite prevalent right here in Nigeria. We also have we have a situation where there are reinfections. People are actually getting reinfected with HIV, new infections. And one of the things that we've discovered is that 63% of the leading cause of people getting infected by HIV are from marginalized key populations. So you have people who are, people in prisons. You have people, male partners and all of that. We have all of those things. And these are the leading reasons why people are coming down with HIV infections every single day. Now, about the stigma and the prevalence, the major issue we are facing right now is that a lot of people do not know that getting HIV doesn't necessarily have to be through sexual intercourse. It can be through other means, or the use of intravenous paraphernalia, for instance, like the use of syringes. In fact, I've had a couple of health workers, doctors, nurses who have gotten infected by HIV just because of they got a needle stab, or like a needle prick that became something serious from an HIV positive patient. We've had situations like that, and if you leave it unchecked, it can become something else. But thankfully, these days, whenever you have a needle prick injury, you have to use HIV prevention therapy.
How effective is that?
It is actually quite effective. So when you use it, it actually stops. It's preventive. So let me just put it like that. So, but now in the case of treatment, when it comes to treatment of HIV, we have a situation where people are beginning to understand that your quality of life doesn't have to change because of the fact that you're having HIV. We've seen treatments, when you talk about people who are HIV positive, we talk about viral loads as well. I made a tweet a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of broke the internet where I talked about somebody achieving undetectable viral loads, and because of that, he went to the church and gave testimony, and the pastor said, "Don't use the ARVs anymore." And lo and behold, the HIV came back with AIDS this time around. Oh, wow. But a lot of people, we've gotten to that point in medicine where you can have HIV and you can live a very high quality of life just like anybody else. So you can get to a level where the viral load becomes undetectable. That's, yes, you are HIV positive, but the viral load, which is the amount of viral copies in the blood, means that that also increases the risk of you transmitting the virus to somebody else. It can become undetectable to a point where you can't transmit it to anybody. So one of the key focus that we are trying to look at in this, when we talk about HIV now, the United Nations Agency for the Control of AIDS, that's UNAIDS, they talk about this 95-95-95 initiative, where they say that at least 95% of the population should be screened for HIV, 95% of them should be on sustained ART, that's antiretroviral therapy, and then 95% of those people should be able to achieve viral suppression.
Okay. Now earlier, I didn't want to break your chain of thought. Earlier when you started, you talked about people getting, I don't think I heard you right, reinfected. Did you say reinfected?
Yes. Yes.
How does that work when one gets reinfected? Is it a new strain or just?
Okay. So when we talk about reinfections, like people getting infected with HIV, we are talking about from the key populations. There are certain people in key populations that we say are basically they're the reasons why new infections keep springing up every day. So we have people who are sex workers. We have people living in prisons. We have people, men who have sex with men. We have those key populations are key people that actually cause 63% of the reason why someone can get infected with HIV is based on those key populations. So that is why the work that we've been doing in advocacy has been geared towards those people. Because if we can achieve some level of viral suppression to those, to these key populations, we should be able to control the, the spread of HIV.
Tangible percentage would be effective. That's very interesting. Let me come to Samsudeen. Samsudeen, now, how has stigma impacted young people living with HIV in Nigeria, and what steps is your organization taking to combat this? I'm hoping Samsudeen is still with us.
Can you unmute Samsudeen?
Samsudeen,
we can't hear you.
You have to unmute. You are muted. While you're doing that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead now, Samsudeen. You're muted again. Samsudeen, while you're taking care of that, let me just tell a very short story, and I'm going to be very, I'm going to summarize the story. I was young once, and during my younger years, I was in a relationship. And I once received a call while driving down this big boulevard in Abuja, and the call was from my ex, who asked me to go check myself. At the time, I did. Well, I didn't, rather. And I lived an entire year because she had told me that she had just checked and she was HIV positive. So I lived an entire year. Yes, I see that look. I see that look. Now these are what. So I'm coming from a place where I understand what people who live with HIV are going through. Their thought process. I know what it is like because I lived an entire year believing that I was. Eventually, when I did go check, I went the long way around to go check my status. It was a bank holiday weekend, so I couldn't get my result the very next day. So imagine the trauma of going through 4 days. Friday and Monday was a holiday, and I had to come on Tuesday to get my result. And when I'm getting emotional talking about this, and when I was getting my result, I remember the counselor trying to counsel me, and I said, no, I know all about it, just give me my result. And she says, well, the drugs are not expensive. Yeah, that was what she said. Oh, it did scare me. And then she proceeded to counsel me regardless whether I wanted it or not. Eventually pushed the sheet to me upside down, left the office because she knew what was going to happen. And when I lifted the sheet, I looked at it and it was negative. And I cried. I bawled. I cried. And
you were in denial
it changed.
For so long.
Yes, it changed my entire life. That one moment. So I'm hoping that Samsudeen is back and has effected that change on his device. Samsudeen is not here. But let me extend that question to you. How are organizations helping people who are living with the stigma? In my case, I wasn't going to come out and say that I was HIV positive, even if I wasn't, but at the time I thought that I was. And it changed the course of my life. It kind of, I think it suppressed me a whole lot. So I'm imagining people who are HIV positive, who are being suppressed because of that knowledge, noting that stigmatization is just a thing next door.
Yeah, you see, when we talk about stigmatization, there are different components to it. And one of the components we talk about is the mental health component in itself. And then there's the societal component where people, actually marginalize people like that. There is a situation where people think that you are a philanderer just because of the fact that you are HIV positive, There are so many areas of this, the societal acceptance. People say that, like God is punishing you because you have HIV, because you've been jumping around. These are the certain areas that people say that HIV is an infection that is, like a curse for a punishment for people who are philanderers. And these are some of the biases that we need to start addressing properly. First of all, HIV can happen to anyone. Your story actually certifies that. It can happen to anyone. I can be a medical doctor attending to an HIV positive patient with a very high viral load in the theater, and then I get exposed. It has happened before. Certain times when I'm having cesarean sections with patients and then I get a knife cut. It happens. It happens all the time. Or the lead surgeon just mistakenly pricks you with the suture. You can easily get infected. It's not, so saying that, HIV is a curse on someone, it basically, the way it affects the way we see HIV. And then because of that, people can't say it openly that, I am a person living with HIV. And because of that, people are also afraid to go for treatment.
Yes.
And because of that fear of not going for treatment, that is when we see HIV progressing into AIDS and then becoming as devastating as it could possibly be.
You're going to help us make that differentiation. First of all, ARV, antiretroviral drug.
Yes, antiviral, yes.
And then now you've just repeated that where it progresses from HIV to AIDS. While I understand what it is, I'd like to clarify what you mean with the difference.
Okay, so basically HIV in itself is the human immunodeficiency virus. So when people have it, like basically one of the key things about HIV is, number one, it replicates very fast. Number two, it targets the immune systems, right? So when we say human immunodeficiency virus, so it means that it targets the immune systems, the immune cells. And one of the things that it does is that it attacks them, it attacks and replicates from that. And so that means that your immune system is basically like your bodyguard. So it provides first line of protection against anything. You can see that maybe today you might notice that you're sneezing today, and then tomorrow you're no longer sneezing. Why? Your immune system has actually attacked it and gotten rid of it. But in the case of HIV, what happens is that those immune systems start getting attacked. Okay. So something as simple as a flu, to somebody who is dealing with HIV, it can be as if they are dealing with a life-threatening disease that is about to kill them. Why? Because the immune systems are absent.
So now that's
So
HIV.
yes. So then there is, then the more it continues, it starts affecting different organs. So that's when it now becomes like, for instance, they can have, full depletion of their immune system. They can start having serious, what do you call it, complications in their liver, in their, around their body. There can be co-infection, especially with TB and hepatitis. And because of that, it starts leading to what we know as acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So that's a complication of HIV, where
organs are broken down.
There is already like multiple system failure in different areas of the body. So just to put it, as simple as that.
One other thing, doctor. I'm sorry, Dashi. But it goes with the story. Now, I also learned why I did not have HIV, even if we were active. And it was something called being a discordant couple, if you could explain that.
Okay, so...
Also, while you're explaining that, I actually wanted to ask if there are people who are immune to HIV and what makes, their system different.
Yeah, that's where we talk about, serodiscordant couples. Well, like serodiscordant, like it is very possible for you to have HIV and I don't get infected, because there are some people that are just quite, how should I put it? They are immune. They are not at risk of getting.
How questions actually go hand in hand.
Exactly.
Yes, so they are not at risk. So it's very possible to have an HIV positive woman and the husband is HIV negative. So they are basically.
How does it work?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we want to know. What makes them immune?
There are a lot of different theories and explanations for that, but some people say it's genetic, it's environmental. It also depends on the exposure of the person per time and the viral load of the individual as well. So because viral load is also very important, there are some people that if you have a very high viral load, it automatically means that your risk of transmitting the virus is high. But if you have a low viral load and it is well controlled, it is very possible that you will not transmit it either to your partner or to anyone else.
So it's not a matter of being totally immune.
There are a couple of factors that are
but at the wrong time, if you continue that way, you might just get infected.
Some people get infected from HIV just through blood transfusions. There are some people that get infected that way.
Okay, now let's find out from you. You did give an example earlier about a tweet you actually made, and we know you're a content creator as well. What are people like you, that's content creators, doing? How are they using the social media and also digital platforms to, push and create awareness on HIV/AIDS?
Okay, so one of the key things that I like to use my platform to do is to educate the public on health. And one of the key messages that I like sharing is HIV in itself is not a death sentence. So meaning that the fact that you come down or that you're infected with HIV doesn't mean that you should give up, right? Because right now there are treatments that are existing treatments right now currently in Nigeria that allow people living with HIV, number one, achieve proper viral suppression, that is, they can no longer transmit the infection to anyone else. And then number two, they have high quality of life just like you and I. Like anybody else that is living with HIV, they are also living a very high quality of life just like anybody else. So one of the things that we try to educate people, and I remember when I made that tweet, it actually got to some places, and there were a lot of discussions. And presently, even the UNICEF is on the discussion right now. We want to talk about it. We are trying to ensure that, number one, people that are living with HIV must must be on sustained antiretroviral therapy. And regardless of who they are, regardless of their religious beliefs, regardless of their sexual orientation, in fact, those are the things the UN, WHO is all about, like we are talking about this year. One of the goals is to ensure that everybody living with HIV has a right to good treatment. That's exactly the focus of today's awareness. Okay. So yes, the whole idea is to educate them and to also provide a means of support. The fact is, currently, there are a lot of support communities that exist for people living with HIV, which is one of the things that is enabling people to be more consistent with their treatment and also live a much better life.
I'm being told that Samsudeen is back with us. Samsudeen, are you there? Can we test your audio to be sure that you're with us, Samsudeen? Fantastic. Samsudeen, I asked earlier what organizations are doing to help people who are living with HIV or dealing with stigma.
Yeah, thank you so much again. I'm sorry for the technical issue. And so to start with, CSOs, youth organization, actually patient community like mine, we're doing so much. And to start with, from what Dr. Gulana was saying, being HIV positive does not define you to be promiscuous or whatsoever. Someone like me, I've been living with HIV since birth. I mean, I think about 24 years, and it's been a long year with antiretrovirals, and stigma feel like the biggest challenge we are having, especially around promoting HIV awareness. And we've identified a lot of factors to be responsible for that. And one of the strong things is even the self-stigma. Personally, growing up with HIV, I could say I experienced the side of the self-stigma. I know there was a time where I needed some information about HIV going on, but they weren't there probably because I lack a proper disclosure processes that should be given to every child with HIV. And trying to learn about HIV on my own was quite disastrous. The fact that I had to learn the negative part of HIV, the part where they say you can't have your own life, you cannot be whatever you want to be, you cannot have a wife of your own, you cannot have children of your own, it can't be something substantial. So it's got to a point where it's affected me mentally. I had to be taken in and out of clinic. It's even got to a point where I got admitted for a while in the psychiatric clinic. So it's part of that self-stigma that we need to sort of tackle with. Another thing that has been a big challenge with stigma is, I would say, healthcare space. In Nigeria, to start with, I think the issue of doctors migrating from Nigeria to other European countries, America, UK, and others has been a huge challenge with stigma. And a lot of our healthcare workers are quite fatigued, which does not give them enough time to provide substantial information that needs to be given to PLHIV. And a lot of time people just go to clinic. We have, I think the recent one shows we have more than 1.6 million. The data is showing that we have more than 1.6 million with HIV. Imagine that number going to clinic where we have few healthcare workers to attend to them. They have to do what they have to do to just get them done, and they leave and go home like they want to do. So that special attention to helping young people live with HIV to know what they need to know about the status is not there. Just come to the clinic, give them the medication that they needed, and they all leave, and the same cycle continue all over and over. So we need to do that. And youth-friendly centers, we need to I've identified that there are no youth-friendly centers per se that are really functioning to assist people living with HIV to understand what they are taking the drugs for. It's not just people living with HIV that talk about youth-friendly centers. For me, I finished from the University of Ibadan, and quite a number of time, I can't even count the number of time I went to the facility because I don't find it friendly. I don't find the friendly center friendly. So, and there's a huge knowledge gap of what people that are not living with HIV are knowing. Even the recent effort by international partners, they have been trying to boost the empowerment of people with HIV. They provide them with substantial information they need to know about themselves. And for example, there's a post there by PEPFAR, the PEP project, that's the Patient Empowerment and Education Program. But we need this kind of program, not just for people with HIV, but for the entire space, like the whole young people in the world, in the country. We need them to know that when they meet someone living with HIV, this is what it means to live with HIV. These are the things they can do, these are the things they cannot do. Because there's a very huge knowledge gap of what people out there. Apart from me, it's probably I've been with HIV for 34 years. I know this is what HIV entails, this is what I should do, this is what I should not do. So we need to take it out there. There are PrEP, there are PEP, there are a lot of substantial plans to curb the spread of HIV. Like Dr. Ulana rightly said, the PrEP, the PEP, is that what is called a couple? I mean, I can decide, because I'm HIV positive does not mean I have to marry someone that is HIV, because that's general, even in the community. They always do this matchmaking. But the HIV continuum of care has gone beyond that. I don't have to like settle for what I don't want just because I'm HIV positive. I can widen my tentacles. There are a lot of plans that the U equals to U program, the undetected equals to untransmittable. When you are addicted to your drugs, you get to a certain point where you cannot transmit. You can have your children you can have your wife and you won't infect her. You can have your children and they will be giving birth without the virus.
Now,
so
Samsudeen,
all those
Samsudeen, I hope you can hear me. Samsudeen, we have a very little time, but you've mentioned some very critical things that I need you to really expatiate on. You talked about the knowledge gap when it comes to people living with HIV and what other people should know about them. We also note that you just said that you've been living with it for 24 years. And now you talked about the centers, the youth-friendly centers that aren't friendly. What suggestion do you have as a leader of one of these organizations that has the interests of people living with HIV/AIDS at heart? What suggestion do you have for maybe the government or authorities to make these centers truly youth-friendly?
Yes. So to make it youth-friendly, I think we just need to put some policies in place. For example, let me go back to University of Ibadan. There's a course, they call it GS107, which is sexually transmitted infection, that really talks about HIV. We need government to like make that kind of a curriculum compulsory for university students so that they go through it compulsory. It's compulsory that they go through it and they have understanding of it. And the centers, let's have those kind of centers across the country where people can go into and have a first-hand knowledge of what they should know about the virus. And another way of thinking that, for example, I've been thinking we need to do so much of media awareness. Personally, because of the year, part of the plan is I want to like go deep into like creating more awareness. Is I decided to like make a documentary of story of myself. It's titled "Call Me Shams." It was shot by an American filmmaker, Jeff Brown, and we shot it here in Nigeria, in Abuja and Port Harcourt. It's like a 10-minute short film documentary to explain everything about HIV, to help people living with HIV know that irrespective of their status, they could be whatever they want to be. For me, at some point, I believe I cannot travel around the country. And today I'm trying to tell you that with HIV, I've gone to several continents. I've gone to several countries with HIV. So the documentary is out there. It's going to be live, public. It's not yet public, but it's going to be public soon. We're just trying to take it to film festivals so that we can engage filmmakers. We can change their orientation. We can let them know how they can help us with the media angle of promoting HIV and see what can be done differently. Also, you would agree with me that with media, we can get it right, because how did we get here with stigma in the first place? It's media. I remember in the early days of HIV, when they are going to describe anything HIV, they're going to put a picture of a sick person. So that definitely they are trying to pass information, but the information they are trying to pass, they are not being strategic. It creates this kind of apathy against people with HIV. Like people with HIV, they are only sick. So anytime you see someone that is not sick, the first guess of people is this person is living with HIV. So we need to have strategic communication patterns to communicate HIV education. Let them know this is what it means to be HIV. These are the systems in place to curb HIV. This is what I need to do to also protect myself. And I think with that, we are going to go a long way fighting stigma and promoting the awareness.
All right, now, Dr. Ogunlana, just before we go, we just have a few minutes left. I know you have something to say, about everything that he's actually said, but then while you give us your final words, what advice do you have for, those who are hesitant to, go and test? Yes, that's one. And also, I'd actually love to know, because I know some people are actually, they actually have a habit of, I think there's some test kits that, homemade test kits that you can actually have
home use
test kits that you can actually have. And, does that actually count? That's another question.
Okay, yes. So the first question that you asked, for those who are refusing to get tested, it's important for you to know your HIV status.
And also preventative measures that can be taken.
Okay, so it's very important for you to know your HIV status. I do it every year. not for any reason, but just because it's...
Oh, we're not stigmatizing.
Yes,
okay.
but this is, you know, it's just a very important routine that you should have. Like every year you should, in fact, I advocate that every year you should go see a doctor and get yourself checked. Every human being is just like a car. You have to service it at some point. So checking and, you know, frequent checking. So now bringing it down to HIV is very important because you need to know what is my risk. Am I a zero risk to somebody else? Or am I a risk to someone? So if you're HIV positive, that means that you can be at risk to someone, but it is possible that with treatment, you can be a zero risk to someone. So that in itself can make the world of difference. So it's important to ensure that you have to get yourself tested and get yourself screened. And if you're afraid and you say, okay, you feel stigmatized, you don't want to, you can reach out. Like some of these home test kits, they work, right? So, but then you have to know that in case you get maybe the test result is positive, you still need to go for further testing because they are basically, what we do here in Nigeria is what we call serial testing. So we test first, we determine, and then after that we move to Unigold and then Start Pack. So like there are 3 different tests that are being done unlike other countries where they do everything at once and then they get, which is parallel testing. So, but then it's important for you to get yourself screened, right? Do it, find out if you're negative, you're negative. If you're positive, then you need to go for further tests and screenings to know if that is, you know, if that is the case, then start treatment. Then when you are on ARV treatment, I think it's very important for me to say, knowing that we are on such a big news platform, it is important that you continue your antiretroviral drugs, your ARV drugs, even if you have achieved suppression. Even if. Yes, it's possible for you for the viral load to become undetectable. Yes, it's possible for that to happen with the current line of treatment that we have. But then you have to ensure that you keep using your ARV to maintain suppression, right? And it's very possible because now we are even getting new types of, you know, resistance when it comes to ARVs. So we have to ensure that it is consistent, that you consistently use the medication. Then finally, for prevention, I think it's important for every one of us to know that we need to make sure that whenever we are going to be interacting with blood products, we have to be very safe, like we have to be safe. For partners, they need to be safe during sexual intercourse, make use of you know, contraceptives, proper contraception, especially if you're going to be engaging in sexual intercourse and the likes like that. But let me leave it there.
The home kits, do they work?
Yep.
The home kits.
The home kits, they work. Yeah, they work.
All right, good. Well, Samsudeen and Wali, I can call you Wali now.
Yes, you can.
I want to say thank you very much for you 2 gentlemen for coming over today and giving us your expert opinion regarding the situation and also the awareness for World AIDS Day, World HIV and AIDS Day, which is today, by the way. So you want to go out there and make a positive effect on people living with and at least just stop the stigma. That's all I'll say. Thank you very much once again to our good doctor in the house.
Thank you.
Dr. Ogunlana.
Thank you.
And of course, Samsudeen Karim, who joins us online. Now, do stay tuned. We've got another conversation. Did you know that come the 13th of December, you might be paying more for your telecommunication businesses and everything you do, whether off curriculum or on curriculum? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned. And it's time for another big story. It's raining big stories here today on Breakfast Extra. We cut through the headlines to get to the heart of the matter. Now, it's all about the tariff tension sweeping across the telecommunications sector. As the Nigerian Telecommunications, or rather Communications Commission, prepares to unveil new tariff rates on December 13th, the announcement has sparked widespread concern over consumers and industry stakeholders alike. Will this move align with economic realities, or will it add more financial burden on Nigerians already grappling with high cost of living, petrol, electricity, and all? Well, joining us to shed light on this pressing issue are 2 seasoned experts. We have Abdulaziz, a telecommunications analytic professional with deep insight into industry trends. And of course, we'll be joined by Devo Okorie, political and development analyst, who will help us to explore the social, economic, and political implications of these proposed changes. So, Dashin, let's dive right in, shall we? Abdulaziz, you're welcome.
Abdulaziz, you're welcome once again.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
All right. Now, let's begin by, you telling us that typically what would actually influence the NCC, to make a decision like this to renew or review and also implement new tariff plans?
All right, thank you very much. So basically, it has to do with factors, basically, two major factors. And I want to describe them as internal factors and external factors. For the internal factors, basically, to be factors that will affect the telecom operators. And then for the external factors, would be the one that will be affecting the customers. So basically, we have a whole lot of them, but I'm just going to mention them from a holistic point of view. So I'm going to start with the internal factors affecting the telco operators. So one of them has to do with the market competition. And what I mean by market competition, it has to do with the various product offerings that we have in the market by all the telco operators, all with the focus or objective of seeing how they can increase their market share. So basically with that, it could be one of the contributing factors that the NCC want to look at to see how they can actually harmonize all the plans in the market and to see how they can be communicated to the customers in a simplified communication approach. The other major factor, which is another internal factor for the telco that will affect the telco operators as well, it's what I would call the socio-economic changes. And that has to do with some factors affecting the economic activity. One of them could be the cost of inflation. Another could also be the rising costs in their operations and the infrastructure, which amount to or quantify to millions and millions of naira. So basically, from the telco perspective, they want to look at the fact that how can it be revisited or how can it be readjusted to ensure that it can actually help to drive their business sustainability in the long term. So basically, these will be the two major factors that will be affecting the telco operators from the perspective of NCC. I'll be moving over to the other factors, which are actually the external one related to the customers, and they're just two majorly. The first one has to do with the offerings of the customers that helps to drive their adoption and growth based on the fact that across board they can actually subscribe to various voice, data, and value-added services. So that can also be a contributing factor for that will influence NCC decision as well. The other contributing factor as well has to do with the spend and customer growth as well. Looking at how has it increased over time or has it decreased over time, that could also be a contributing factor as well, in which the NCC Commission is actually going to have a look at. So all in all these factors basically as internal or external will actually play contributing factors in which the NCC is actually going to see how they can actually simplify these tariff plans, but not only that, to see how they can actually have an effective tariff structure in place for the review that will be implemented.
Currently, the service from the telcos has been really bad. And I had this argument with my producer, and I was telling him how this might be as an effect of what the country is going through. You talked about the economic factors just now. The increase in energy cost or spend of trying to keep up these companies. And then there was inflation. There's also Forex. Most of these companies are from outside of Nigeria or have indigenized since, but they still have to deal with Forex as well. Are these responsible for why we have had bad service so far? And with the increase being suggested, if it takes effect, will better pay for the telcos make their services better, do you think?
So basically, yes, to add to what I just said, looking at the foreign exchange right now, looking at how it has risen in the last couple of years, it has actually played a contributing factor. So from the telecom perspective, what they are trying to say is, the costs of operating the business is actually on the increase. It's not the same amount it has to be anymore. In terms of infrastructure, in operational costs, it's not the same. It has to be reviewed as well. But at the same time, don't forget that the telco operators, in as much as they're trying to see how they can actually sustain the business on the long term, they're also focused on ensuring that the quality of service to the customers, is still superior. The user experience is to give the customers as well to be superior. And at the same time, ensuring that customers still sees value for the existing and the new product and service that will be in the market. So yes, basically all those costs have actually played a role to contribute, but at the same time, it also has to be reviewed or adjusted based on how it can actually meet the realization of the economy.
So will we get better service, do you think, if we pay more?
So at the same time, that discussion basically is a continued discussion, but definitely there's going to be a striking balance in terms of affordability and in customer value. So yes, in the long term, it's going to be positive. Yes.
All right, now you did talk about, you talked about the increase and you talked about affordability as well. We know that the NCC has said that they would be reducing tariff plans for some of these telecom or for the telecom operators to 7, right? 7 tariff plans. Now, can you tell us how does limiting, these tariff plans, how does it make it simpler or easier on the consumers?
So at the moment, so for the NCC, basically, for every product that each of the telco operators will launch into the market will actually be very unique, innovative, and obviously going to cut across to the services offered by the telco operators. So in terms of affordability, what the NCC is trying to do is to say all the particular plans that actually are there in place, and to see that the customers are not confused about the plans that are looking similar. Is there probably another way to see how we can actually harmonize all these plans? Which brings to your point in which you mentioned earlier in terms of bringing those particular plans in to a particular number. But don't forget that the data still hasn't been, discussion hasn't been finalized yet. And at the end of the day, we're still having continuous discussions going on with the telco operators and with the NCC to finalize. But at the end of the day, what is actually going to be very at the forefront is that it's actually going to be beneficial both to the telco operators and also going to be beneficial to the customers as well.
All right, now I've been told that Devo has joined us. Devo, good morning. Thank you very much for joining this morning. I hope you've been listening to our conversation with Abdulaziz. Now, Devo, if you're there, I'm wondering, are you ready to pay more for your data or voice calls? And what impact do you think this will have on people, businesses, systems? The whole e-commerce infrastructure, for instance, runs on data by telcos. So what effect do you think this will have on people, establishments, small businesses, and the rest?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I guess in line with economic implications of the policies that have been taken by this administration, there's a direct impact on every sector. And here we are discussing the telecom sector. And as you've heard my co-panelists say, they were driven by the new cost in terms of energy, in terms of operation, insecurity, vandalization, that they've not been able to reflect on their pricing for a long time now. Now, generally what that means is that they've been missing their profit targets. They've been operating at a loss, as you can see from some of the reports that we got earlier in the year from the major telcos. Now, what that means is that just like every other business has to do, and it's almost the same for individuals and businesses, they will have to, on the individual side, you would have to spend more to get what you need in terms of basic amenities. And for businesses, they would have to spend more to keep themselves afloat and to operate, which at the end of the day, they'll pass on the cost in terms of pricing to the end consumer. Now, looking at the scale of pain points for individuals and businesses, it's good that we keep an eye on that, because this is where you see the direct impact of the state of affairs. One, the cost of energy. Okay, for most households, they have to pay for electricity, they have to pay for gas. Businesses have to buy diesel, and that will ramp up costs at the end of the day. You're seeing that with this increase that is coming. Secondly, you talk about the price of food. Individuals have to stay alive. We're paying more just to be able to eat. So gone are the days where people used to eat 3 times a day. These days, those who have money eat twice a day. Those who don't really have or have low income eat once a day. And those who don't have at all, who are in the majority, you must always put that into consideration, eat once in 2 days or 3 days. Now, what that means effectively, also you talk about the price of transportation, which has also gone up. You talk about the price of medical services and receiving medical health. And now that goes both ways in terms of us, the end users of medical services, and the practitioners, the medical doctors, lab scientists, and nurses. Now, these are the initial 4 pain point costs. Before you start talking about school fees. And this is where data and telco services come to play. Most broadcasters would say that's the streaming platforms and the broadcasting networks would say, oh, the data services should not raise their price, because they know that in today's world, in Nigeria, many people consume their content via data, via streaming services, okay, via the internet. So directly what that means is if the price of data is going to double or triple like it did for electricity, it means you have to spend more. And because you don't have equivalent increase in your income, you would end up consuming less data, which means when you consume less data, it means less inflow or income to broadcasting services. It is a major problem for Nigeria. And my issue with this government is not that we're running helter-skelter discussing the impact of the cost of living and inflation. What are we going to do in the long run to be able to bring about the productive impact that this tightening of our belts, this high cost will take us to? Does it mean that we are going to a point that we will not be able to afford to live or to sustain ourselves? I actually believe that the federal government should be discussing how to address the power problems of this nation. You can see that the power component is almost 60% of what telcos spend in trying to keep their base stations working. And that's one of the major reasons why their services to us comes at a high price. If we don't resolve this for the nation as a whole, so that industries, various sectors, from the medical to the transports to the telcos to the education, have a lower energy cost to take on board, it's going to be really tough as a nation. It's going to be extremely tough as a nation. And you know how broadband services has helped. It's said that under the SDG, that if you're able to implement broadband within any area, you're able to multiply your GDP times 4. So if broadband services are going to come at an increase, which will make it impossible for most people to afford, it will have an impact on the productivity of this nation as a whole. We don't want to get there. We're just getting out of that. So the real task here for government is to address the delinquent energy services in this country, both in terms of the petroleum and oil and gas sector, as well as the electricity power sector, which have a 60% impact on the nation as a whole and to us as consumers or individuals who want to live and be able to consume data as we like it.
All right. Now, let's come back to you, Abdulaziz. Now, Devo did say something about, using less data. And I don't remember when last time I actually heard someone say they used less data, in Nigeria. And, the NCC had actually, people have actually complained about, rapid data depletion. And the NCC, blamed it on the type of phone that, the consumers are actually using and not, on the telco operators. Can you explain to us how different types of phones actually consume more or less data?
All right, thank you very much. So basically, different phones have different operating softwares, and at the same time, it's going to affect their data consumption. But apart from that, I also want to add that even with that in place, what the telco operators have done is to carry out different campaigns and communication strategies to educate customers on how to actually use their data in terms of ensuring that whenever you're not using your data, you should actually put it off. And also, there are some particular applications that by default, if you look at the data that's actually going to use, it's going to be higher depending on device and also the operating software. So it's all and all, and it actually varies. So basically, in as much as there's still that concern in terms of data depletion, in as much as to have that concern in terms of the data can actually be because of the different device or whether you're using an Android or Apple device. At the same time, telcos on their own part have ensured that they can actually carry out campaigns and communication strategies to enlighten customers about how to use their data and also let them know how best they can actually get value for money using them.
Devo, I'm going to come to you finally and ask now.
Can you also ask him about hidden charges?
You go ahead and ask him already.
Okay, yeah, okay. I've actually put that out. So hidden charges. How do we ensure transparency? How can the NCC ensure transparency?
This is to who now?
To Devo.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it was for the telco executive, but the point is this: hidden charges, they're not actually hidden. I mean, most times when you take on a plan, charges are stipulated, right? But you know how it is in this country: plug and play. People just buy and spend. You don't want to hear the story behind it. Just like electricity, and I must say this, with a higher cost of service delivery, consumers globally will have to become diligent in their use of these services. Let me reference the electricity sector. Remember in Nigeria before, electricity was relatively cheap. Therefore, people could leave their ACs on. They could just leave their lights on in the house and walk out, compared to the people in the UK. And if you've been to the UK, you'll know from Nigerian citizens that immediately you finish using lights, you turn it off. Immediately you finish using maybe an iron or a fridge or something, you turn it off. The only thing that you leave on is maybe your deep freezer or your refrigerator, because you're managing your cost. This will now apply, this actually now currently for those who are on band A, you know we're paying 3 times the cost that we used to pay before. Everybody's managing their costs. If you're not using this light, turn it off to conserve. Same thing with data. Now Nigerians will have to, because if you call your friends in South Africa, sometimes you call them via WhatsApp and they'll tell you, sorry, my data was off. Let me know when you want to call me. I will put my data on so that I can receive your call. That's where we're headed to. Unfortunately, it's the situation of today. We will have to manage the high cost of these services much better as citizens. Maybe on your phones, like my panelist said, if you have, I wouldn't call it hidden, but apps that are still working. If you check your phone, it will show you some of those apps that consume all the data. Then you will decide as an individual what you keep on and what you keep off. But it's the reality of today. It's an expensive time to be alive. The only solution here is for government to tackle the long-term energy crisis and for consumers to make more income, if you can, to be able to have a better life.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Unfortunately, we've hit the top of the hour. I wanted to ask Abdulaziz whether that's the case, whether that's why I've been unable to call him, because maybe he has to switch on his data.
No, definitely, that's not the case. You need to just check the apps on your phone to know just consuming data.
But Devo is right. That's where we're going, isn't it, Abdulaziz?
Well, it all takes discipline, but at the same time, it's not the current reality. So, which is why the customer education is very much important. Not only that for the telcos, but also customers need to understand how they use their data, and they need to be informed and they need to be enlightened as well. So, telco operators have actually taken that responsibility to ensure that while they're actually selling out their unique offerings for data plans, which is more affordable, at the same time, they're also taking up that responsibility to ensure that we need to educate such customers to know how to use their data and also decide when and how much they want to use it.
Gentlemen, we want to say thank you very much, Mr. Devo Okori, and of course, Mr. Abdulaziz, for joining us and giving us your expert opinion on the matter. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
We're now going on a very short break.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's do a short break and then bring you the news right here for Breakfast Extra. Welcome, and now time for the headlines. My name is Mazima Peel. Now, the camps of the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Labour Party 2023 presidential candidate Peter Obi have dismissed rumors of discussions for a joint ticket ahead of the 2027 presidential election. Speculations erupted on social media after photos surfaced of Atiku hosting Obi for breakfast at his residence in Adamawa State. Atiku later shared a video of the meeting on his official X account, captioned, "It is breakfast time with my friend, Peter Obi." In the land of beauty. Now, the meeting comes months after the Deputy National Spokesman of the PDP, Ibrahim Abdullahi, hinted on a live political program that opposition leaders were exploring a potential merger to rescue the nation from collapse. In more news, the national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, has appealed to the party's 2023 presidential candidate Peter Obi, Abia State Governor Alex Otti, and other aggrieved members to return to the party. Abure, who faced opposition over his re-election during the controversial Nnewi Convention, has been reaffirmed as LP chairman by a federal high court in Abuja. In response, he has sought to rebuild trust with party stakeholders. Obi, Oti, and others had earlier established a 29-member caretaker committee led by former Finance Minister Nenadi Usman to oversee new executive elections. Abure has debunked claims of a crisis, insisting the court's ruling solidifies his leadership and resolves disputes, emphasizing the court has said there is only one leader in LP. Now, the Middle Belt Forum, the MBF, has reiterated its call for the restructuring of Nigeria, highlighting the marginalization of minority groups under the current system. MBF's national president, Dr. Beatrice Pogo, represented by Emmanuel Alamu, made the statement at a two-day symposium on restructuring held in Kaduna. The event, organized by the Rebirth Group, brought together various ethnic groups, including Ohanes Ndigbo and Afenifere. Pogu emphasized the historical exclusion of the Middle Belt from key decision-making, stressing the need for restructuring to address marginalization and inequality. And former Minister Femi Fani-Kayode has alleged that private sector elements are trying to undermine the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, the NNPCL. Their achievements in restructuring the Port Harcourt refinery especially. Now, Fani-Kayode, in a post on X, said the refinery rehabilitation is a significant victory for Nigeria and credit should go to the president and the NNPC's managing director, Malik Yari. Fani-Kayode described the revival of the refinery as one of the most promising developments in Nigeria's petroleum sector in years, crediting the achievements to President Bola Tinubu and the Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC. Now, at least 54 bodies have been recovered following a boat accident involving around 200 traders in Kogi State. The head of operations for the National Emergency Management Agency in Kogi, Justin Uwazurunye, confirmed the grim toll while speaking to a journalist on Saturday. He stated that the recovery efforts, coordinated by NEMA, the Kogi State Emergency Management Agency, and the Red Cross, had yielded 54 fatalities so far. And Namibians have voted on the final day of a controversial extended election following chaos and allegations of foul play. The electoral authorities extended the presidential and legislative polls after technical failures on Wednesday led to long queues, some of which voters abandoned. Opposition parties have raised concerns about voter suppression, citing strong turnout among the ruling party's rivals. Electoral Commission head Petrus Shama confirmed that provisional trust, or rather results, would be available after the final polling stations closed at 9 p.m. On Saturday, hundreds queued at the Seoul polling station in Windhoek, where around 2,500 had voted by Friday.
It was so nice, and I feel so good. And you need to understand what we are voting for to upgrade our country, so stuff like that.
I feel very positive. I'm very excited. It's the first time I'm voting, and we were very disappointed when we couldn't get through the process on Wednesday. So this was a very positive process, and everything happened so quickly, and it's very organized. So it was really positive, and feeling very excited for getting to cast my vote this year.
I feel relieved because it had been on my mind, and I feel it's my civic right to vote.
I'm very happy because on the last day I did not succeed, but today I make it, so I'm feeling very happy that I vote.
So now that I voted, it's a tick off from me. I feel proud of myself, I'll say.
And that's all the headlines this hour. Thank you very much for staying with us, and do keep staying with us because it's still Breakfast Extra and we've got more conversation coming your way. Welcome to Focus Africa segment on Breakfast Extra here. Now, the discussion. Mining has long been a cornerstone of South Africa's economy, but recent events have actually, underscored the, let's say, dangers and also the complexities of the industry. Now, in South Africa, Bloemfontein to be exact, a mining disaster has gripped the nation as workers were trapped underground following a collapse. Now, this has been carried on since through the week here at News Central, as we have also brought you very interesting on-the-spot assessment of the situation. While some have been rescued, the situation has sparked heated discussions about illegal mining operations, the safety of workers, and also the government's response to the crisis. Now, this incident also highlights the growing tension between the authorities and also illegal miners, which has been a problem in South Africa for a while. South Africa's police minister has vowed to crack down on illegal mining, which has been linked to rising crime and also dangerous working conditions. The latest tragedy in Stilfontein is a stark reminder of the human cost of unregulated operations and also the systemic issues plaguing the mining sector. Now, joining us today to talk about the developments is Mzukisi Jam. I'm hoping that I got that right. In fact, I'm very sure that I did. Mzukisi, thank you very much for joining us today.
Mzukisi is actually the provincial spokesperson for the South African National Civic Organization. It's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Good morning.
All right, okay, good morning. Now, can you go ahead and paint a picture for us, on illegal mining activities in South Africa and also the recent, incidents that happened in Stilfontein?
I think firstly, I must appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I must further apologize for the position I'm in. Sadly, we can't be at the comfort of our homes because our people are here. So we have to be where they are, literally on a daily basis. Mining in South Africa for years has always been a cornerstone in terms of our economy as the country, but also in terms of curbing unemployment and poverty for many households. But the problem has always become the monopoly within the mining industry. I think the lack of transformation within the industry itself has led to what we are facing today. The rate of unemployment, the alarming rate of poverty within these areas, it has also played a major contributory factor to the illegal mining that we are facing today. We have a number of abandoned mines in South Africa. Perhaps let me focus on the current situation that we are facing in Stilfontein. There are a number of abandoned mines which are then used by the locals and some foreign nationals, as we've been told, to mine illegally in a sense that they don't have documents to go down there and do the operations that they are doing. But we have always been saying the fact that we have thousands and thousands of people underground doing this illegal mining, it's a clear indication that these abandoned mines still have some minerals down there which can be used in terms of curbing the rate of unemployment that we are facing as the country. We are a country very rich in minerals. We're very rich. I can tell you now, each province, South Africa has got about 9 provinces. I can tell you now, each province has its own minerals. Okay. Now, if those minerals would be managed or were managed properly, I doubt we would be finding ourselves in the situation that we are in today.
Okay.
But the sad reality is that we have a government which has literally turned a blind eye to the society. We have a government which has literally turned a blind eye to the realities that our people are facing. the reality is that there is a high rate of unemployment and there is a high rate of poverty. So you then expect these kinds of operations or these kinds of activities to take place if such is not paid attention to.
Mzukisi, now, we understand that this is what's led to illegal miners actually using one of these shafts, these abandoned mines, and that's what's caused the situation currently in Stilfontein. But the authorities have also stopped them from, receiving aid, receiving food. So far, what's happening currently, the Minister of Police actually told that they would be rescued, but this went back and forth during the week where they were still stopping individuals from presenting or sending down aid to the miners. What's the situation now? How far has the rescue gone? Are they going to be rescued or at least allowed some humanity when it comes to food and drink?
There's no sign of any attempts to rescue these people from the side of the government. In actual fact, if I can share with you, their sentiments were that those people should be smoked out. So from the first pronouncement by the minister and presidency to say they were not going to send any help or any assistance to these people on the basis of their illegal miners. Rather, they would prefer smoking them out. Nothing has happened. So you can actually literally see that they are literally smoking them out, but strategically. Now, in responding to your question, the Minister of Police was here 5 weeks ago. He came back on Friday to make a follow-up. We thought he was coming here to make a follow-up on what he pronounced the last time he was here. Because the last time he was here, he said the following week, all of those people will be extracted. But the following week came, it was one thing after the other. There was no extraction happening. There was no assistance happening. And to make matters worse, even ourselves as the community, we could not now go there and assist those people as we have been doing because there was a court order. Now the minister came back on Friday, this past Friday. To our surprise, the minister came to still ask us as the community if what is it that we would like the government to do. And we are reminding the minister that, but the last time you were here, the community said to you, we are simply requesting you to extract those people from underground so that they don't die in there. But that has not happened. But to our surprise, the minister perhaps he was having some sort of amnesia. He forgot that the same questions that he came and asked are the same questions he asked the last time he was here. So you can just see that there is some sort of a delaying tactics that is being played. And to be honest, there is no willingness and there is no sign of any attempt by the government in trying to rescue these people. Last time they said to you as media, there are rescue teams which have been established by the minister together with the MEC for public safety in our province. That was a lie. The only rescue teams which were established are the rescue teams which were established by ourselves together with the community. But from the side of the government, we have never seen any rescue teams which were established. There were no rescue teams. So there has never been any sign or any attempt from the government to say they are willing to extract these people from underground. The only thing that we are getting is these endless meetings which have no positive outcome. And these rhetorics and these preachings and teachings, the minister on Friday was giving us a history of where their operation Valamgodi comes from, and went further and gave us a history about the number of foreign nationals who are down there. He went further to ask us as to what are we now saying now that they are getting reports that the majority of the people who are down there are illegal immigrants. I asked a simple question which was never responded to say, are you then, minister, saying on the basis of the fact that you're getting reports that the majority of the people down there are illegal immigrants, are you then saying they are less human and therefore they must be allowed to die in there? There was no response. So that's the situation that we are facing. The minister came on Friday and left as he came before and left. He left us with the same situation as the people of Northwest, specifically Matlosana, where the incident is. But we are still stuck with the same situation. There is no assistance that we are getting from the government, and there is no assistance that we are getting from anyone. And people continue to die down there because we keep on getting reports that the death rate is going up. It's expected to go up on the basis of the fact that we got reports that some of these people have not been eating for more than 2 months. Some of them have not been getting medical attention for more than 2 months. Some of them even wrote a note requesting to be assisted with their own ARVs. We do understand the dynamics with regards to how medication should be distributed. But we were again taught about how medication should be distributed and about how the department which is supposed to be giving medical assistance cannot come and assist. So we are in a serious situation here. But the only thing that we are expecting is that the people down there are going to continue dying. And we've been appealing to the government as South African National Civic Organization to say we are refusing to be part of the massacre that is happening down there. We are simply requesting for those people to be extracted to the surface, and then whatever happens, happens.
Well, it's quite a disheartening situation, and we do hope that, the government is able to rescue those who are still underground in time, and, save them from whatever it is that's happening, underground. But thank you so much for shedding more light on this very, very important and critical issue in Zukisi Jam. And thank you also for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now do stay tuned because we have coming up a very interesting conversation about freedom of press here in Nigeria. And we're going to be citing the case of investigative journalist Fisayo Suyombo, who will be joining us as well. Stay tuned.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. We have come to the final lap on the show. And in any free democracy, a free press is one of the most critical pillars of accountability and transparency, if I do say so. However, in Nigeria, press freedom continues to face significant challenges. Now, from intimidation to arrest, journalists often risk their safety to expose the truth. Now, this reality came to the forefront once again with the detention of investigative journalist Fisayo Suyombo at an oil bunkering site in the Niger Delta. His detention by the Nigerian army has reignited conversations about the shrinking space of press freedom in the country. Fisayo is no stranger to controversy or danger. His his groundbreaking investigative reports have actually exposed corruption and malfeasance in high places. And his arrest and subsequent release underscores the risk faced by journalists who dare to uncover the truths many would prefer remain unhidden. Now today, we'll delve into his recent experience from his detention to his startling revelations about oil bunkering in Nigeria, thriving menace, that's a thriving menace that, impacts our economy and also the environment.
So joining us, like she said, Fisayo Suyombo himself is here with us. You are welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Mazino.
Oh, you brought the hoodie. Okay, that's interesting. Fisayo, please, I would like you to give us a very detailed picture of exactly what happened just before and during your arrest by the Nigerian army.
Okay, thank you. So I was working on an undercover investigation on oil bunkering. Without saying too much, that's a story that should interest the Nigerian army, that should interest the government, because oil is a live wire. Of course, it shouldn't be. We should be able to diversify, go into agriculture and all that. But we do know that oil is so. The government should be interested, and the army should be happy to have found a journalist, investigating illegal oil bunkering. The plan was to steal crude. The plan, as I've done with previous stories, I need to emphasize, as I've done with previous stories, the plan was always to go through the entire process and, as a result, obtain hard evidence, So it was also to go to them and say, okay, I'm trying to do this business, they gave me a budget of 18 to 22 to 23 million naira. I first had to go and look for that money. Yes. So I got connected to the bunkers. We had meetings. I first flew to Port Harcourt to have one meeting. We talked, went back, they went to look for the money, and then we kicked off. We had to rent a truck. We had to speak with those who would steal the crude. We had to find a date. So the plan was to get the crude and to go sell in Enugu. Because the places they usually sell stolen crude, Enugu, one understands to be Abia or Anambra, and sometimes they go as far as Kano, but we were to go to Enugu. It's a ring. The buyers are waiting. It's not like, we would get there and start looking for them. The buyers were waiting. So on Wednesday, the early hours of Wednesday, we got to the site. So I have to go back to check my GPS so I had to have limited interactions with my phone. I didn't know those places, the bushes we went to. So I would just, use my tracker to take a screenshot of the location and save. So I have to go back to speak in specific times. But we were at where we were supposed to load the crude. In any case, we would have left before the army. The army claiming they got intelligence, they tracked, the truck was bad. We got in, and they needed the guy to reverse into that past, a hose from the site they were stealing the crude from to that footpath in the forest. And the guy was reversed. He first came down, he grumbled, he walked all the way to have like a 5-minute walk to go have a look, grumbled, came back into the truck. The clutch of the truck was bad. So he struggled and struggled and struggled with it. If that truck was good, we would have left before. The spokesman of the army was lying that they got intelligence. We would have left before them, So then they got there. Of course, when I saw movement, first thing is that some security operatives, I won't name the agency, were to come, to guide, to make sure that no one else arrested us. They were paid for it. Because when the army says, oh, how can you do this kind of investigation without carrying us along? Oil bunkering cannot stop until security agencies do their job. They collude, they get paid to look away. And that's basically how we got to the stage of saying we could move. They had paid a number of people in different security agencies to look away while we were moving the crude. So when I saw, a van come and, first thing as a journalist, I ducked. You have to hide first to know what's happening. So I ducked. I didn't even go far from, the footpath where they came out from. I just ducked for a while. After a while, I called the bunkers to say, look, what's going on here? And they said, no, it's not a big deal. It's just some people that were not settled. So they're having a conversation and they would resolve it. So I was there for a while. After another 30 minutes, I then, unlike what happened when they first came, when they came, I had the sound of a vehicle. Then I had footsteps, like running. So the security officers came out and were, chasing after some people. But unlike then, like half an hour later, things had calmed down. I was just hearing voices. So I then thought the settlement had, been completed. So I was pretty relaxed where I was. And I was trying to call the bunkers again. Then they saw, the light of my door. They flashed the torch. Who is there? And I came out. Of course, if I didn't know, if I felt that there was trouble, I would still have run. But I just thought the settlement had then been done. So I came out. And that's when, they grabbed me, took my phones, took everything. And there were so many of them, civil defense, army, some private, civilian, security outfit. I knew that some of them would have been compromised, even though they came, for the arrest. So I couldn't tell them at that point I was an investigative journalist. What I did was play along. So I'm not the main guy. I was just told to, accompany them, monitor what they were doing. I played along. They came there around, I think, 2 a.m. We were there, different people interviewed me. I just played along. Around 5, or thereabout, we left. They took me to a camp. And then they just told me to lie on, just sit down on the floor, the sandy floor. I was there. In the afternoon, they then took me to the headquarters, the 6th Div. And I thought, yes, these are the people in the offices, the superiors in the offices who made phone calls and ordered for me to be transferred there. I thought it was okay to then say, look, I'm an oil bunker. I'm the investigative journalist working on this story. I did that. I told them to confirm. You know, they were like, oh, what do you mean? An investigative journalist can also do oil bunkering. What if you had succeeded with the bunkering? We would not have seen any story. You would have claimed that, you know, we would have kept quiet. If you didn't succeed, now you didn't say that you have a story. And I said, no. There is a track record. I've gone to prison undercover. There are only 2 journalists on this continent who have tried that. The other person is Anas Aremeyaw. I've gone to prison and spent 8 days in prison, you know, experiencing the process. Spent 5 nights in the police cell. I spent 10 days in a psychiatric hospital. When I put my name to a story, it's about me experiencing it and giving hard evidence. I got myself trafficked to Burkina Faso. You know, you offer Nigerians dollar-paying jobs and tell them to come to Burkina Faso. And I got myself trafficked. I spent 3 days on the road and 3 days back. You know, so I tracked an orphanage job that was selling babies for 19 months. And I bought a baby. I bought the baby. I paid 2 million naira for the baby. And just before I released the story, I took the baby to NAPTIP. So I told them that if I had, you know, completed this process, I would still have come back to Army to say, this is what I found out, come and respond. Now there is a track record of how I have gone about my investigations. I did one earlier this year on smuggling. Went to the border, brought in 100 bags of rice, experienced the process. When I was done, I called the spokesman of customs and allowed him to respond. I gave him the chance to respond. He did not. So the track record is there. That is what this guy has done over the years. So you have enough online to establish my identity. Of course, they knew I was an investigative journalist. They went online, they checked my profile. They then piped low and said, oh, they will take me to the house of the commanding officer of the most senior army officer in the anti-bunkering unit. Went there, they gave me food, allowed me watch Liverpool, Real Madrid, Champions League, meaning they knew already that I wasn't a criminal. So why did they detain me? Which leads to the conversation on press freedom. You already know that this guy is a journalist. There are other people in the cells that they took me out of to go to the house of this senior officer. They didn't have that privilege of sitting with him, eating food made from his house, watching TV. That's because they already knew that I wasn't a criminal. So why then did they hold me for 2 more days? If the information had not filtered out, I would still be in that cell by now.
You spoke about information and how it filtered here and there. How did that play in the dynamics here, the information that you revealed to the 6th Division of the Army?
So something else that I forgot to say is that the Army did not get any intelligence to track those people. One person who did not get money, you know, in the bribe, alerted them. It was someone who was unhappy. As a matter of fact, when they took me to that camp, you know, the camp is close to Port Harcourt refinery. 3 of their men there said it in different languages. One said, when we there, when I don't give us money, and I think say if you pull, you think you can pull that kind of operation off in our backyard without settling us. Another one said,
this was who now specifically? Who was it?
One of the security, maybe a soldier or a civil defense. Yeah, there's a camp there. Okay. Yes. So it's either a soldier or a civil defense official who was saying
they're in the know. They're in the process.
Yes. To say you thought without paying us, you would in our backyard, you carry that kind of operation, you pull it out successfully. That's not possible. Another one said, "You be Mumu. Why did you come out?" I said, "I thought it was a settlement conversation because settlement. We don't see any money for here. We didn't get any money here. You know, so it's not like some special intelligence led to the presence of the army on the scene. It's that someone who was offended that the money did not circulate to him, you know, in the security setup, alerted them. Now, you asked the question of how it played out that the information got out. That's not something I can say online. Yeah, it's a security. But of course, if you do the kind of job that I do, one thing that is important is you have systems in place for ensuring that wherever you end up, it may take a while, but people have to know. You don't just go there without making arrangements. Say, okay, so if something goes wrong, what is plan A, what is plan B, what is plan C, what is plan D?
Now speaking of information, I in your piece, I actually read a part where you said that some information you gave the army filtered to the, bunkerers.
Yeah.
Can you explain that part.
Yes, so I was taken into 6 Div around evening. We got there maybe like 4, 5, and I told them straight away that I wasn't an oil bunker. I was an investigative journalist and private detective. And I was shocked that when I got out Friday evening, I was, to my shock, bunkers were telling me who I was. Like, they called us from 6 Div. I'm quoting the smuggler, he said it in pidgin. Said they called us from 6 Div and said, where did we find you? That you're an investigator. It's exact words, that you're an investigator. We now started checking your profile. We saw interviews you granted TV stations. Is that true? This is a very serious situation that the army gets, let's even say that I'm an oil bunker, gets a suspect and you interrogate him. And at the point of release, oil bunkers
have your intel.
Knew almost all the things he told you. Now they were upset that I embarked on this kind of project. I didn't carry them along. That revelation actually vindicates me that it was the right decision to not carry the army along. And you see, security, again, coming back to press freedom, security operatives, security agencies, get offended when they hear any other person use the word investigate. Say, you are investigating as journalists. Who are you to investigate? That's our job. No, you as police, excuse me, for instance, you can investigate and prosecute. As a journalist, I can also investigate. Just like I can prosecute, I investigate and publish. A journalist can investigate crimes. A journalist can investigate corruption, can investigate every single thing that the police think they can investigate. The difference is just that the journalist cannot prosecute. His duty ends with releasing it to the public. So there is a glaring lack of knowledge about the roles, the powers of the Fourth Estate in the armed forces. The police, the army, navy, in a lot of them, they just don't want to hear you use the word investigate. They are telling me, but we bring other journalists, even foreign journalists, we take them to the bunking sites if someone wants to do a news. Yes, if someone wants to report a news, yes, you can. But an investigation, anyway, has to be independent.
I wanted to take you back again and touch on the anatomy of this syndicate. You spoke about meetings, flying to the Niger Delta to have these meetings. What kind of people were you having meetings with? Were they all sweaty and with oil all over them, or were they wearing suits and ties? What kind of people are involved?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. I cannot answer that question because of the Nigerian army. Now, when FIJ tweeted that I was in detention, FIJ never said anything about oil bunkering. It's not like they couldn't have put it out. It's not like nobody at FIJ knew what story I was working on. But the army then rushed out to say, if the army wanted to be as professional as it gets, it would have been, we found him at a suspicious site and we needed him to establish that he's a journalist. That's all. But now you've come to tell oil bunkers that this guy was investigating. That's essentially what you have done. You've set oil bunkers on my trail. You've compromised my security, And these are the things that impede the building of trust between the media and public institutions. So how can I trust you if you compromise my security in that manner? How can I trust you if you grill me, I tell you stuff, and I get out and oil bunkers are aware? I already have low trust in public institutions, and I don't hide it, and I can explain it. The most painful example, and it's painful, and I'm not going to hide that I am pained that this happened. The orphanage home that I tracked, that was selling babies, I bought a baby, spent maybe like 5 million or thereabouts or a little more on that story, including the 2 million with which I bought that baby. And just before I ran the story, I took the baby to police. Police rejected them, we took the baby to NAPTIP. Nobody said, let's recover what this guy, spent on what the organization spent on it. And then I did not hide that I was interested in the welfare and well-being of that baby. So I would go, and when I couldn't go, we had an arrangement with NAPTIP that my representative, whom I formally introduced to them and they knew, would come once every month. They gave us the day and the week of every month to come. And that person was always available, or I was available. This girl's birthday, the baby's birthday, we bought gifts, we went back. Christmas, bought gifts, went back. We were following up. One day, on the appointed day, my contact went there, and NAPTIP said, you can't see the baby. Till today, please, I want Nigerians to ask NAPTIP, especially their immediate past DG, what did they do with that baby? And why did they slam the door on us? And how do they think journalists can then trust public institutions? You know, because when things happen and public institutions make an announcement, government says we have inaugurated a committee, and we attack them and say, no, this is you are just trying to paper over the cracks. And then they say, oh, give them the benefit of the doubt. How do you get that benefit of the doubt when things like this happen? Someone spent his organization's resources, doing your job for you. You should be happy to collaborate. And then the person brings the baby, because at the end of the day, I can't overreach my powers. I'm a journalist. I can only write. By law, I shouldn't be in custody. A baby should not be in my custody without the knowledge of NAPTIP. I've done what I should do by law. Why do I wake up one day and you say I can't see the baby? Why?
So still in this, same line, as a frontline journalist, can you help us rate press freedom under this particular administration?
1/10.
Why is
1/10. Statistics. Well, as of 2 months ago, a data journalist was telling me well over 100 journalists had been arrested, detained in 1 year of the Tinubu government's stay in power. You know, at the cell at Sisdiv, where I was kept, there's a woman who has been there for 4 months. That woman did not commit murder. You know, but that's a diversion. You have security agents pick up journalists and disappear them. The guy on Twitter that was picked, Pidom, you know, if the information hadn't filtered out, nobody would have known. I was arrested. That's the end. They gave explicit orders. This guy should not touch a phone. Nobody should give him. And I said, I want to talk to my lawyer. You can't hold me here. You've established that I'm a journalist. If you claim to be who you are. No, it's not about if, but I need to speak with my lawyer. I have a lawyer and I want to call my lawyer. And they said no. You know, my Daniel Ojukwu, a reporter with FIJ, did an investigation. Someone in government felt he's so powerful, sent the police to abduct him. They picked him because the police can arrest, which is, we are the police, we have a license to arrest you, and you get to the police station, you can call your lawyer. They held him incommunicado. That's not the only experience. You know, so you have lots of, now people are afraid. The National Cybercrime Center, which by the way does some good job, you know, in terms of trying to track financial crimes, has then been turned into an agency for oppressing journalists. You know, you saw Femi Olatunji of First Nation, how, you know, masked operatives abducted him and they disappeared him that way. Look, even if a story is false, under the provisions of the law, what are you supposed to do? File a lawsuit, you know, and let the person prove, you know, their case in court. I am not a journalist who would come public and say, oh, you can't do anything to it. If a journalist has published a false story, if a journalist has collected brown envelope to falsify stories, to kill stories, and you have evidence, yes, institute a lawsuit against the journalist, prove your case in court. But in this regime, you know, and the police spokesman still went ahead to defend it and say they can pick up anybody and still not allow the person have access, you know. So it's not like this is novel that, you know, journalists have their freedom tampered with, but it has become more brazen in this government. It's become more brazen.
Interesting. How far would you say the Nigerian army were responsible for foiling your investigation? Have they absolutely ruined it, or is it still salvageable?
So that's not really what is on my mind right now. And that's why I couldn't answer your question on the location. What is on my mind right now, what I'm worried about is the army compromising my security and the implications for my safety and how I need to rethink my security strategy. That's really what I'm worried about now. It's unthinkable that the army went forward to say, essentially telling oil bunkers, this guy was after you. So what do you expect them to do with that information? To say, let's try to take him down before he gets that story out. So that's really what I'm worried about. Now, my worries have nothing to do with whether I have a story or not, but it's just how to keep safe. And unfortunately, how to keep safe as a result of, I'll call it backstabbing, by an agency of the government, an institution that should be happy that I was at that scene. That should be saying, what did you find? And how can we collaborate? What arrests can we make? What intelligence can you share with us to help us foil, oil bunkering? That's what I thought they would do, not compromise my security. And that's more worrying for me than whether a story exists or not.
I'm still going to go back on that story and ask how big this menace is, because you have first-hand information, oil bunkering in Nigeria. Who's involved?
It cannot stop. It cannot stop because what needs to be done for it to stop will not be done.
Who is involved?
The most powerful people in this country. The most powerful people in this country. Don't forget, the level that I investigated was, the level of going to steal crude from the pipelines and passing it into trucks. Huh? We haven't talked about the ships that come into the country, lift crude, unaccounted for. We haven't even reached that point. Just at the point of people going to, steal crude from pipeline, attach hoses, and divert to, and then you get to the headquarters of the army in the south, and you speak, and everything is out. It tells you that some of the highest people in security, in armed forces, are involved. And of course, if people like that are involved, then the political powers are involved as well. Because, just like Peter Obi said, oil is not sweet that you put in your pocket. I'm not the one. If I wasn't aware that Peter Obi made that statement until yesterday when people started putting, appending the video to my tweet, oil is not sweet that you put in your pocket and you go away. If a ship is berthing in Nigeria, it can't be done without government. If it's leaving, it can't be done without government. But with what I've seen, at the level of putting crude in, we were to take 50,000 liters of crude, and there was a second truck that was to load that night. So that's 100,000 liters. That's 100,000 liters
This is
of
crude. This is not refined product.
No, this is crude. Yes, this is crude.
So it would have been taken to where now? A proper refinery or one of these makeshift refineries?
No, it wasn't. This wasn't going to a refinery. So I understand that there are some factories somewhere that use raw crude.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, now that you have been compromised, do you think you would still go ahead with the investigation? And also, while we wrap up, what advice do you have for other investigative reporters, following a similar path?
So as I said, the question of whether I go ahead with the investigation or not is, people think that I want to die, that I take risks carelessly. No. I take calculated risks. So I don't just go to anything. I know, I see signs that, yes, I can navigate the risk and come out. That's why I do it. I'm now at a state where I feel I've gone to the field and my life is unsafe. At this point, the story is immaterial. It's secondary. When I fix my security, then I can then think, is there a story or not? Advice to investigative journalists, you should know why you do it. You have to be sure why you do it. Your motivations have to be internal. All the things that are, your motivating factors have to be internal. In the last 24 hours, I've had so many people tell me, oh, stop doing this, leave Nigeria, all that. You have to know why you do it. And I know why I do it. This is what the purpose of my life is about. This is for the benefit of the country. All these investigations have nothing to do with adventure. When I went to Burkina Faso, got myself trafficked, people came afterwards to say, oh, you saved me. I had this offer. Of course, they were paying between 1.1 and 1.5 million to get those fake jobs. And people were coming to say, look, if not for you, I would have lost that money. That's the whole essence of investigative work, that it benefits the public interest. And once an investigative journalist is fine with serving the public interest, everything else is
Fisayo, we didn't know that we had been speaking for about 30 minutes because this is a very interesting piece of information that you brought our way. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
He's been trafficked, arrested, abducted, he's been to prison, and he's interacted with compromised security agents. Fisayo Soyombo is here with us, and a very interesting story that you've told, and we hope that press freedom is giving away in Nigeria onward, and I hope that this serves as an expose to that menace that we actually face. Thank you very much, Fisayo.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And with that, I think it's time for us to say our goodbyes for this weekend on a very, very bombshell note. Thank you very much. Dashin, I want to say a special thank you to you for being with us this weekend.
Fun hanging out with you.
You see, Fisayo, Dashin is normally not here. It's normally Judith. But this week she joined us, and it's been a fantastic experience.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for crowning it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, catch you guys next week for a Saturday edition. See you guys then. It's Mazino Appeal, Dashin, Usman, and let's also add Fisayo Soyombo. Goodbye.